All right, everybody, we are live. Let me go ahead and unmute the guys here. We got a very special guest with us today, and that is NBA Jam, the book. Welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. My name is Reyan. I'm so excited to be here. This is so cool. Got all kinds of cool stuff to share, and I love Mortal Kombat, so this is a perfect combination right here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, Tabmock99 was responsible for getting you here, and it's awesome to have you, man.
Yeah, hey, my background is green. What?
I
What
kn-
is going on?
I know I didn't chroma key you this time, but that's okay.
No problem.
You're in Johnny Cage's studio today. That's the theme.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've got a lot of fun stuff today. We got a lot of things to cover. We're going to be covering some news from Kombat Kon, I believe, as well as talk to NBA Jam the book about everything he's working on, which is insanely cool. And then we have a big announcement at the end of the stream. Is that right?
Oh man, that pretty much covers it. Yes, we got some Mortal Kombat news to get through, so I think just like Galloping Ghost does, we should pretty much start with the Kombat Con announcements and just let everybody know up front what's going on with that. So do you have a clip that you want to play regarding that?
I have it ready. Are we ready to play it?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
We've
Oh, so apparently there's no sound with the clip for whatever reason. OBS is throwing a fit. But anyway, this is important because despite the little flaw here, so this is important. This is Doc Mack, who holds the con. He is actually talking about, I believe Combat Con is officially confirmed. It's on.
Yeah, well, you know what? When we put this up on YouTube, I
it's gonna be a
will
little
edit
different.
that sound back in
bringing
and
back some
post.
stuff that
Yeah,
you might
'cause
have enjoyed
I don't
in
know
the
if it's because
past.
it's an
So
MP4
stay
file. I
tuned
missed
tomorrow
that.
on
Usually
our
I don't miss those
Facebook page.
small
We're going
things,
to do
but,
that early. We
yeah, so
apologize
OBS
for any
doesn't tend to like,
inconveniences that it's
MP4s.
caused. We have tried our
yeah, so there it
absolute
is.
best to make this show
He
absolutely
basically
amazing,
announced
and
Combat Con is
we hope
on.
everybody will
It's going to be a little bit
still
different,
enjoy it, and
which is
stay
exciting.
tuned for
It's
that
going to be there's
announcement
going to be some
tomorrow.
other things that are going on with it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's really interesting to see that is definitely going on.
Yeah, I'm glad that he confirmed it,
Yeah.
but I will say this. Now it seems to be playing and talking over you guys. What in the world?
Is that
Okay,
any better? I just muted it. I don't know why it's doing that. That's
I love doing live streams,
Yeah.
and when things don't work out like the way we plan, it's so funny.
yeah.
Like But anyway, what he said in the stream, I guess everybody knows now, is he said that Combat Con is on. He implied that it will be scaled down quite a bit. He apologizes for the inconvenience. He said there would be a big announcement on the Facebook page, but there was no announcement on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just checked the Combat Con website like a few minutes ago, and there's nothing there. There's no tickets for sale. So the ticket sales are still suspended. So whatever big announcement they had planned, it hasn't quite happened yet. But we'll stay tuned, and as soon as there's something to report, Mortal Kombat Online is way on top of these things. As soon as Galloping Ghost says something, we will broadcast it out to you guys, either on our website and on our social media platform. So as soon as we know something, you'll know something.
Absolutely, and I talked to Dan Pacina, and Danny Pacina is interested in coming on and being a guest and talking to everybody as well, and so is Rich DeVizio. So and I think we're actually you're coming to Chicago this Friday, right?
Oh yeah, I'll be in your hometown. I wish I could be there tonight. That would be fun to do the live stream with you in your home.
Yeah, we'd have fun.
But but the timing of it, we'll be there. I'll be there Friday for sure, and we'll hang out. We'll have a good time.
Because Kung Lao and the Scorpions, Anthony's band, is playing, and Danny and I think Rich is going to be there.
Oh, look at that! What a nice surprise.
So you're gonna be in town for that. I'm going to that. That's kind of gonna be like my little birthday celebration since I didn't get to have one so far. But we'll have that. That'll be fun. We'll get a lot of video and have fun with those guys again, and it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I miss those guys.
Yeah, and some people in the chat, I see they're asking, band? Yeah, Anthony Marquez, the actor who played Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, he's in a band called Kung Lao and the Scorpions. Yeah. And in fact, maybe that would be a good giveaway at some point for our stream. Maybe we could give out the CD as a prize.
That would be something we could talk to Anthony about this Friday.
Oh, yeah, look at this.
Maybe get it decided.
Yeah, and you know what? We have some other great ideas for prizes too coming up. I mean, we always have cool things on the giveaways. So, including tonight, I think Reyan, you brought something that you're going to be able to give away to one of our guests. Is that right?
I did. I have right here in front of me an original NBA Jam flyer. So this is straight from the factory, the same kind of stuff that they delivered to the arcade operators and the distributors back in 1993. So yeah, this puppy is going to go out to one lucky person.
Oh, man, look at that. That is not a reprint. That is an original flyer from the 90s.
This is the real deal, yeah.
Wow. All right, so anybody who's into NBA Jam, this would probably mean a lot to you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece. And it's super cool. It's a piece of video game history, honestly.
Yeah, those are cool. I actually got those. A bunch of flyers for the arcade machines I have. I don't have the NBA Jam one, so I'm jealous of whoever gets that one. But they are not that easy to track down, so that's a heck of a giveaway item to get. Those are some of the OG flyers they hung up back in the arcades in the 90s, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. I brought along a whole collection of them. I got a Revolution X one and whatnot. So this was one of the stack. Yeah, look at this. I got all kinds of stuff. I think I've got some Mortal Kombat ones over here too. MK3 was just too much for me. The MK3 ones are great. I got Hydro Thunder over here.
I have the Hydro Thunder.
Hydro Thunder. Don't you have, Fatal Kate, a Hydro Thunder machine in your living room?
It's in my kitchen.
Okay.
It's in my kitchen with my Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. In my living room, that's the NFL Blitz and the Mortal Kombat 4.
Mortal Kombat 4. Yes. I remember the layout quite well. Well, all right. Do me a favor. We're updating the Discord. Well, I'm going through the Discord, and I'm seeing that it's not updating properly on the Twitch.
Okay, I'll fix that.
Yeah, no, you're always good at that. But I just wanted to let you know it fell out of sync.
Yes.
All right, so I guess everybody can see the image there. We can see the Ronin Kitana pack. So that's one of the other news items that we want to get to. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Kung Lao and the Scorpions. That is Anthony Marquez's CD right there.
Yep. Let me see if I can scroll up on it a little bit to give you guys a little better image here.
So, yeah. But also in the top, you can see the Ronin Kitana pack. So MKX Mobile, that Ronin Kitana pack is available for sale for $19.99. Of course, the challenge for it we can expect will start tomorrow, where you can just play to win instead of pay to win. That's the way I'd rather do it. Just play through the game and earn it by fighting against Ronin Kitana. So that's a cool thing. That is a new exclusive skin to MKX Mobile that is not in Mortal Kombat X for the consoles or the PC.
Right.
So, yeah, that is one of the news items we get to. We got a question from CyberFox. How does their music sound? How would you describe Anthony Marquez's music for Kung Lao and the Scorpions? How would you?
It's rock and roll, baby. It's rock and roll. I mean,
but it's also it's like very positive and upbeat.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He sends a good message in his songs, man. He's legit. It's literally Kung Lao singing. Like, Anthony is a hell of a performer, and his band is just absolutely out of this world amazing. I mean, these guys can play anything. Remember, we were at Kombat Kon, they played, and they were literally like, what should we play? And who's the guitarist, I know him, he's a good guy. He's just sitting here, he's so talented. He's just like, I'll play this, I'll play whatever you guys want. And he's just so insanely talented. That whole band is off the charts good. I'm excited to see them again live. They're just so much fun. And every time they play, Tony dresses up in full Kung Lao costume. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't get better than that. You're watching Kung Lao Jim with the Scorpions. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Do they cover the Mortal Kombat theme?
They don't, to my knowledge, but I am going to talk to Tony about that on Friday.
That's going to get people hyped. Yeah.
Well, maybe one day we can not only get him on our stream, but maybe we'll play some of these tracks for people. In the meantime, how can people listen to that stuff? I know there's some app that you millennials always have on your smartphones. What are these music apps that you're using to stream his music? What is this?
Well, I mean, millennials would call it Spotify, but Gen Xers like us, it's Spotify.
Thank you. And Anthony Marquez is all over Spotify.
Yep.
Does he play his hat? Oh yeah, his music is deadly.
Very. If you're not careful.
Yeah, no, his music is razor sharp.
Yeah. You'll get a fatality if you're not careful.
Yeah, so that's it so far for the news, right? I mean, Kombat Kon is on, but the big announcement hasn't dropped. We've got MKX Mobile has the new exclusive Ronin Kitana. That right now you can pay for it, but the challenge starts tomorrow. And there's one more piece of news. There's one more news item I want to cover before we really get into the NBA Jam book. So if you advance to the next image oh, well, there we go. Injustice versus versus Masters of the Universe. Excuse me.
Yep.
Issue number 3 is out now, and I gotta say that there is a twist in this comic. I don't know if I want to spoil it, but if anybody is planning on reading it, the Batman that they have in this comic is not who you think he is. So that is pretty much all I can say about that. But you can kind of see in the cover, there is the Batman that's under Superman's control now. Superman is using Brainiac's technology to sort of control everybody who disagrees with him, and that Batman is basically his prisoner. But there's another Batman whose identity is something of a shock. So I'll keep that as a secret for anybody who's interested and wants to pick up that issue.
Very interesting. I'm excited. I've tried to pick this up after you mentioned it. I just can't find it.
Well, you might have to go digital on this one, buddy. The digital ones are like $3.99 an issue.
I'd rather have it in paperback form.
I hear you. I am predicting that when this is a limited issue. There's only 6 issues in this miniseries. So I'm predicting that all 6 will be collected in one trade paperback when it's done. So maybe we'll go that route.
There you go. Oh. That's awesome. All right, let's see. And then what else is next?
Well, it says the Twitch machine got unplugged. Try again in a moment.
Oh, well, it's not on our end. I'm still streaming live.
Okay, good. Well, then let's keep going with it. All right, so NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat, right? 2 great tastes that taste great together. Reyan, I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through a little bit of some of the connections between NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat that people may not be aware of.
Absolutely. So, it all goes all the way back to when Mortal Kombat was being created at Midway in the early 90s. It was actually created just a few doors down from where NBA Jam was made. And the games were made in succession at Midway. Mortal Kombat comes out in 92, and then NBA Jam comes out in 93. So it was like a really, really cool period for Midway where they had these 2 massive hits, one after the other. And they're both really connected. Going back even to before NBA Jam and before Mortal Kombat. So John Tobias, of course, the co-creator of Mortal Kombat, was also on Smash TV with Mark Turmel, who's the creator of NBA Jam, the main designer. Mm-hmm. And going back to, this would have probably been 1988 is when Mark Turmel joined Midway. Back then it was Williams, then it became Williams Valley Midway, and then, of course, everybody knows it as Midway. So Mark Turmel joins. His first project is Smash TV, and he's involved in the hiring of this guy who's this artist. He comes from comics. He worked on the real Ghostbusters. It's John Tobias. So Mark Turmel was responsible for John Tobias's hiring. I don't think so. I don't think it was directly, but it was enough so that his influence mattered. So John Tobias joins Mark Turmel to work on Smash TV, and John Tobias really loved the idea that Turmel took him seriously. I mean, Tobias was pretty young back then, and he was, I think he was relatively inexperienced. So Turmel is like, whatever, I'm into your ideas. They talk about Smash TV. They make Smash TV. Lo and behold, that becomes a pretty good game. Also with Ed Boon doing the voices on Smash TV. That's another cool thing also.
Didn't he do the voice of General Aboob or something?
Yes, that was in Total Carnage, the one that was coming after that. Yeah, he was the host in Smash TV.
Yeah.
So, big money, big prizes. I love it. I'd buy that for $1. All that is Ed Boon. And And that's back when Ed was just a pinball programmer. I mean, he was in pinball. He was trying to work his way up to video because, he really, obviously, he had some big dreams for his video projects. So, Tobias and Turmel, they worked together on Smash TV. Smash TV does well, does even better than Narc, which was the big thing back then. And which was the big thing right before Smash TV, rather. So then they decided to make a sequel, and they make Total Carnage, which is the one with General Akboob, where Ed Boon voices General Akboob again. Does a voice for the game again. And that game ends up doing not so hot. So, people always talk about these successes of these companies. You always remember, like, NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat and whatnot. You don't talk a lot about the games that never really took off. And Total Carnage is one of them. So Total Carnage is made by John Tobias and Mark Turmel, and then they decide to go their separate ways as the process changes. Tobias wants to do something that's really story heavy. Like, he's been reading a lot about script writing, I think was one of them, and screenwriting. He wants to do something with story. And Turmel's like, look, nobody really cares about that. Turmel's like a gameplay guy. Turmel wanted something that was like a quick, fast, fun experience. The arcade game was not the best venue for something like that. So after Total Carnage basically bombs, then Turmel goes one direction into NBA Jam, and John Tobias goes toward making Mortal Kombat with Ed Boon. And then Ed moves from the pinball department permanently. He worked on High Impact Football with Eugene Jarvis to working on Mortal Kombat with John Tobias. And then, of course, 2 hits at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's wild. I mean, these are so deeply connected that, I think that people don't quite know that, like, the connections run really that deep.
Yeah.
I mean, they were made right down the hallway from one another. And, they would, like, the Mortal Kombat guys would come over and give feedback to Mark Turmel and the NBA Jam team and vice versa. And then, so Mortal Kombat, of course, was huge. It was this big, big hit. And, Tobias couldn't believe it when he saw just how many coins it brought in on test when it was first debuted. And then Mark Turmel was hoping for something similar with his game. And then Tobias and Boon said, we think that your game is going to be a big hit too. Like, it's got all the makings of it. Like, this is a really special game. And then, of course, lo and behold, NBA Jam sells really, really well. In fact, I talked to Turmel recently, and he said that he thinks that it sold more than Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was something like 20,000 cabinets, and then NBA Jam was 27, is what Turmel says. And then, of course, Mortal Kombat 2 topped that. So it was such a crazy cool time, but it was like amazing that these 2 huge successes were made side by side, like doors down from each other. These guys are working on each other's games, and NBA Jam would not have happened, and Mortal Kombat would not have happened if Total Carnage hadn't failed. So that, if that had gone well, then maybe Turmel and Tobias would have done something else, and Boon would have found somebody else to work on too.
It's funny,
or work with.
It's funny how, like, failure can breed so much success. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
I think all successful companies are sort of build themselves on that.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Mortal Kombat NBA Jam connections, man, I think the connections go even deeper than that. I see some of the chats. Some of the people are already kind of figuring out where we're going with that. Fatal Kate, if you wouldn't mind skipping down a couple, we have a picture of some cheerleaders here.
Mm-hmm.
Think you see what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So I can't. So yeah.
There's the book, though. Oh, yeah. All right, so we got these cheerleaders, man. And look, that's Carrie Hoskins, right?
That's Sonya.
Yeah.
That's Sonya from MK3, yep.
Yeah. Carrie got her start. There, I see her now. Yeah. Carrie got her start with NBA Jam. So this is a really cool story, and this is something that I talk about in detail in the book. So there's this artist named Jack Hager. He was on Carnival. He was on Narc. He was on Terminator 2. So he worked closely with everybody else in Midway, of course, and they would help each other out with things. So Jack Hager decides to call up Playboy in Chicago. They have an office in Chicago because they need some cheerleaders for this NBA Jam game. And then this woman answers at Playboy, and she's like, this is a weird call. I don't know what this guy's talking about a video game, arcade game. I don't get it. So he's like, Carrie, can you take this call? And then she hands the phone to Carrie Hoskins, and Carrie Hoskins says hello. And Jack Hager says, I'm with Midway. We're working this game. We would love some cheerleaders. Now, Carrie Hoskins had never actually been a cheerleader in her life, and she was very nervous about the idea of being a cheerleader for a game when she was basically faking it. So she was like, okay, I have to get somebody else. So Lorraine Olivia, the other woman you see in that pic, she was actually a real cheerleader, which is why Carrie had her go along for the shoot. And then lo and behold, one thing leads to another, and then Carrie starts off with NBA Jam, but then she goes on to being in Revolution X, and then of course, iconic Sonya Blade in Mortal Kombat 3, and then I also think she was in Mortal Kombat 4, and then to go along with she was in War Gods, tons of other stuff. But her story all started with NBA Jam, and she had no idea really about anything about this world until she got that phone call, and she just happened to be in the room when Jack Hager called Playboy, and she was the right person to take the job.
There you go.
Man, that is a coincidence with a K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's wild. I mean, and she was kind of hesitant about working with Midway. I mean, she just didn't really know anything about this culture, but she found everybody was super cool. I got to speak to her for the book, and she told me that one of the things that used to happen back then was that they would crash so much, the hard drives would crash so much, or the computers would crash, because the technology was so low tech compared to what we have now. And they were always apologizing about the game, like about the hardware crashing. But then she was like, don't worry, guys. Like, I'm here for, you guys are paying me hourly, I'm fine with it. And then she ends up really liking it. And she basically quits Playboy to work on Mortal Kombat and to be part of the game and then part of the live tour and some other stuff too. So, I mean, it's funny how, you're the right place, the right time. You pick up the phone and then you've got Sonya from just this one call to this Playboy office.
Yeah.
I got to give you props, man. You know a lot of her work history just off the top of your head. That encyclopedic knowledge is just so cool to see, because I was thinking about it as you were saying all the games, like how she was Miss Helga in Revolution X. It's like, yes, I remember all this stuff. I remember playing through all these games. I remember that's her. I remember seeing how they used her face. They kind of like did a 3D scan to put her in MK4. Like, I know everything you're saying, and it's like it's kind of coming back to me, all these things. Like, I remember she was part of the live tour group, like all that stuff, man. That's
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. She was in War Gods. She was, I think, some kind of Valkyrie character. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, dude. So, Fatal Kate, if you flip to the next slide, you'll see another connection that's not Carrie Hoskins related, unfortunately. But in the game, in NBA Jam, in the background, there's just like banner ads for random products. They kind of rotate. However, so every time you play a different match, you get a different banner in there, and one of them's for Mortal Kombat, which we have on the screen right there.
Actually, I think there's a couple of them that have Mortal Kombat.
There's more.
Yeah, there's some really good ones in there that I've never seen before until I started capturing some footage for the Insert Coin documentary when I was playing this game, and I was like, whoa, I think I was sending them to you when I saw them, didn't I, Justin? I think I might have texted you some of them, like, what's this?
No, you didn't send me those, but they sound awesome.
Oh.
And this one, like the one that I have here, like if you actually play it in the game, that's animated. Like they actually have lightning effects that go with it and everything.
Yep. Yeah.
And NBA Jam is really the only place that you'll see some of these graphics. Like even in Mortal Kombat, they don't use quite this level of Mortal Kombat graphics. You know what I mean? There's some subtle differences here.
Right.
There's some really cool stuff over there. And I mean, all those backboards, there's all kinds of little bits and pieces of stories in there and references to other games and other projects. One of those backboards, it says Gen X, I think, or Generation X. And that was for a working title for Revolution X. So there's all kinds of little references to things at Midway. If you ever see anything about Cheer Accident, it was Dan Forden's indie rock band back in the early 90s. If you see Play Tournament Edition, it says Sheer Accident. That's a band Dan Forden was in. So I mean, these guys just always shared whatever they were doing, they would share with somebody else, and that's how Mortal Kombat logo will end up back there, or Kano or Liu Kang will end up. I think they're part of one too. There's all kinds of cool stuff back there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, that is amazing. And I think the Kano and Raiden one was like a good callback to that banner for Mortal Kombat 1 that says like "so real it hurts" and they're coming out of the machine.
Yeah.
So Fatal Kate, if you flip to the next one, the next image here, some of the guys in the chat were already talking about this a little bit. But yeah, Scorpion, Raiden, Reptile, Sub-Zero, they are all hidden characters in the game, and there are ways to access them. And you have to put in, like when you enter your initials, you have to enter in the right sets of letters and the right birthday. Right. But if you do that, that's how you unlock the characters.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun.
And so Reyan, you probably know a little bit more about this. It's just like C. Busy Lowell saying, it's only in certain revisions. That's my next question to you was, the NBA Jam didn't take too kindly to this, now did they?
No. So yeah, so of course, so with the first NBA Jam, they don't put anything like this in there. They just started the idea of secret characters. That's another funny thing is secret characters basically started as a joke. These guys all got in the studio, and then they had their heads filmed, but they were just thinking that they were the only ones who were going to get some kind of amusement out of it. And then people started getting the idea of secret characters, and then this whole secret character culture builds up. So with the Mortal Kombat characters in Tournament Edition, they say, well, you know what? Mortal Kombat's a big hot game. Let's throw some Mortal Kombat guys in there. So they really did a lot of cool stuff with them. I feel like Raiden in particular looks amazing. Like he's got, I think he's got some kind of electricity effects or lightning effects. And then I think they even used Steve Ritchie, the announcer for Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, to do the voice. And instead of saying, Tim Kitzrow, who's the, Mr. Boom Shakalaka and he's on fire, they instead had the voice of Mortal Kombat saying Raiden and Reptile and whatnot, which was super cool.
It's funny because in order to unlock the characters and make this screenshot happen, I actually played through and unlocked them all. And I can verify that is 100% what they did. They brought in, for some of them, it's the MK1 announcer, Ed Boon, and for some of them, it's the MK2 announcer, Steve Ritchie. But yeah, I can verify they do say Raiden and Reptile, and it's the Mortal Kombat voice for sure put in there.
Yeah. So they put them in there. So Midway puts them in there, and I don't really think they told the NBA about this. And the NBA at this point was actually very protective of their license. They did not have a good opinion of arcades. They thought arcades were kind of seedy places. They associated with basically drugs and gambling, and I think they associated with peep shows for some reason or porn theaters or something like that.
Hey.
They weren't crazy about the idea of making an arcade game in the first place, and that's another great story too. So Midway sneaks this in, and then the NBA finds out, and the NBA was not happy. Yeah. The NBA was like, "You take this out immediately. This is unacceptable." Of course, Mortal Kombat at that point in 1994 was peaking, the talk of the violence. That was stuff that was really ramping up. So then Mark Trammell and the NBA Jam crew, they take out these characters. But it's great to see that they still survive, and it's so cool seeing Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam in this form.
Yeah. And somebody said that, and I can confirm that, yes, you can do the fatalities. I think you can only do scorpions, right? I think you can do it with any character, but they burn up if you push them enough and you catch on fire. Is that right?
Yeah, cool story about that one. So you can do the fatalities, or it's like a fatality. So basically, I think it's supposed to emulate Scorpion's fatality. What happens is you push the guy. Well, you have to do these very specific circumstances. You have to do the right button combination. You have to get on fire. Anyways, you push the guy, and then they fall to the ground, and for a split second, they turn to fire. They look like the Human Torch, basically, and it's really cool. And it's really rare, and a lot of people didn't even know about it. Even I, somebody who's working on this book, didn't learn about it until a year in, or something like that. So, and then I actually just talked to Sal DeVita recently, who was the artist on NBA Jam, who got his start with NBA Jam, and ended up being, Nightwolf, Sector, Cyrax, Smoke. And he told me that they just kind of threw that in as a little thing. The idea was that you get 3 shots, you get on fire, and then as soon as you did a dunk when you're on fire, everybody on the ground would fall over, and they would turn to that fire. But then they didn't really think it was appropriate for the game or didn't really work, so they ended up just keeping that in there as a little secret, and they eventually, of course, had to take it out when the NBA associated with fatalities and when the NBA saw what was in there. So,
yeah, it's funny how the Midway guys, they didn't really ask for permission. They just did it. Yeah. I think that's hilarious. And then, Fatal Kid, if you can pull up the next one for us in the queue, you'll see that it wasn't just the Mortal Kombat characters that were snuck in there, but some of the developers as well.
Yep.
And this is just some of them. There's actually more, but, I didn't want to show every little thing about the game. But, Ed Boon is in there, John Tobias, Dan Forden, Toasty.
Josh Sway.
And, of course... Yeah, Josh Sway, I put him in there just for you, man.
There you go.
Insert coin documentary.
There you go.
Yeah, John Vogel's in there too.
Yep.
And Sal DeVita, who you just mentioned, is in there, and Kerry Hoskins is in there. There's a whole bunch of developers that snuck themselves in.
Tony Goski's in there. Tony Goski actually, right before he moved over to Mortal Kombat, which I believe he still works on to this day. He did the heads for NBA Jam and the backgrounds. So. he moved right from NBA Jam to Mortal Kombat and ended up staying with Mortal Kombat. But yeah, he was part of that crew too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, someone's saying something about Ed Boon. His image looks like they just mirrored his face.
Yeah.
Is that what they did, do you think?
Maybe.
Maybe he's just naturally symmetrical. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he looks supernaturally symmetrical.
Yeah. I never really noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody else looks pretty legit, though.
I don't know. I do.
All right, so what else we got, man? So this is some of the Mortal Kombat characters showing up in NBA Jam. But if you look at the next thing that we have, some of the NBA Jam developers are hidden graphics in Mortal Kombat 2 as well. Like, this is something, Reyan, that you showed me recently, but I swear I've seen this somewhere before, probably on the cutting room floor.
Are you sure this isn't from Mortal Kombat 1?
It's in both.
Really?
Yeah. Because I recognize some of these graphics as being in Mortal Kombat 1, like the Ed Boon one for sure.
Right.
But if you look at the second one, that's actually Steve Baran, and he's in the Shadow Priest uniform. You know, Steve played the Shadow Priest in Mortal Kombat 2. And this is like a rare picture of him where you can see it, with the cloak off, and you can see his head exposed. You can see that's him. And who's the guy in the middle holding the basketball, Reyan?
That's Mark Turmel. That's the man behind NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, the whole thing. So yeah, so I believe that image is from Mortal Kombat 2 because by the time the first Mortal Kombat came out, they were probably working on NBA Jam at that point. But I think that's from Mortal Kombat 2. From what I understand, that was supposed to be something like a pit background or something like that, where they can use the graphics, but they ended up not using them. But it's so cool. I mean, that's another piece of proof that like these guys are so close with each other that Turmel went and had a basketball in his hand and stood up against a green screen or a blue screen to get digitized for it. It's super cool, and these kinds of little references are all hidden across their games and whatnot, and these guys are still friends. I mean, Ed Boon still posts about NBA Jam once in a while.
Yeah, you're right. He totally does.
Yeah.
And looking at this picture and looking at Mark Turmel holding the basketball, it just makes me realize how many sports balls there are in the Mortal Kombat games. Because in Mortal Kombat 2, there's this hidden basketball locked away in the code. It's not accessible, but it's buried in there. In Mortal Kombat 3, for Sindel's friendship, you've got a football, right? Where she goes, "That was fun." And of course, in Mortal Kombat X Mobile, now Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade have a soccer ball. So we've got like three different sports representing Mortal Kombat now.
That's awesome. Has anybody ever done a baseball bat fatality or anything to do with a baseball bat?
No, but
that would be kind of cool.
Are hidden characters in MLB Slugfest. So there's that.
True, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And NFL Blitz. Raiden and Shinnok were in NFL Blitz.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. All right. Well, there's another picture here, and you directed me to this. This came from a GamePro magazine. But the next image here that I've got ready is Mark Turmel at an NBA Jam arcade machine. So when was this GamePro published? I want to say it was like from a 1995 issue because Mortal Kombat 3 was out when they were publishing this. So this must have been, a 20-year-old picture, even more so. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, so first off, you can get the idea of how tall Mark Turmel is. So Mark Turmel, I think, was like 6'4" or something like that. And so when I interviewed Tobias, he said the first thing, I was like, what was the first thing that struck you about Mark Turmel? And then I think Tobias said something like, he's just so goddamn tall.
Yeah.
And,
I see somebody in the chat saying, holy cow, is that dude 7 feet tall?
Yeah, no, he was very tall. So this is from a GamePro where I think they did a dual profile of him and I think Ed Boon.
Yep.
And it's this would have been probably 95 because I think this they mentioned WrestleMania in the article too, and that came out in 95. It's so cool seeing like little time capsules like this. There's not a ton of pictures out there from this time of the gang that was there. I mean, if it was a different era where you had like cell phones or something like that, or camera phones where you can take pictures all the time, you would probably see a lot more. But that was one of the few photos from that time, and I love that hair too. Turmel used to get that permed. Yeah, he told me
Oh
that
my
the other
God,
day.
that's
Yeah,
so
he would
funny.
go in for perms once in a while. I love that. That's so 90s.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, all right. So the next thing that we've got is a picture from. I researched this picture to see where it came from. It was the Acme show in 1995, and you can see Carrie Hoskins there, dressed up in her full Sonya outfit. Does she still have that outfit, by the way? Did you talk to her about that when you spoke with her?
I did not know. Let's see what this is. Oh, boy, oh, I love this. Yeah, I think I sent this to you recently. Yeah.
You did. Yeah, I got this from you.
Yeah. I'm not sure this is. I'm not. I would doubt that she has. Well, actually, I can't say for sure either way whether she has it or not. But man, I love these old trade show photos because then this gives you like another time capsule of the arcade industry. You know what's cool?
I think that's Ed Boon there in the
is.
background. I think
That is
that's
Ed.
him.
That is, yeah. That's him. Yeah,
And
right behind.
I think
shoulder.
that's maybe John Vogel over there directly to his left in the jacket sideways. Looks like it could be.
That might be.
Possibly.
I can't say for sure. But actually, can I go on a quick 1-minute tangent about John Vogel?
Yeah.
So John Vogel. So just a little bit of background about me. I've been I love Mortal Kombat when I was a kid, and I actually used to post on Mortal Kombat forums in the late '90s. I used to post on I think it was called Earthrealm, MK Nightmares, with a moderator named White Rat. So this is going way back.
I remember the name. I used to chat with that dude all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is from that era. So right around that time, I actually worked on a Mortal Kombat website. That was the first writing I ever did. Was on a Mortal Kombat website, and I did an FAQ about a game called The Grid, which was, of course, the Mortal Kombat team's break between Mortal Kombat games. And I did the interview by interviewing John Vogel. I did this email interview, and we just, we went back and forth. Also, for this context of the story, I used to live in Pakistan. So this is going to be important in a second. And so it was, so we used to do this back and forth and whatnot, and I published it on this website called Mortal Kombat NetherRealm, which is now long gone, but it was super cool for the time. Anyways, John Vogel was the coolest guy ever. He answered all these questions for me. And then, you know what, at the end of the process, it was so nice. He sent something from Midway's studio in Chicago all the way over to Karachi, Pakistan, and it was a Grid shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, look at
What
that
you
thing.
get?
I've seen you post pictures of that on Twitter. Man, I was wondering how you got that. So thank you for sharing that story. I was wondering about how that ended up in your hands.
Yeah, it was amazing. I honestly, I remember that moment distinctly when I got that. Like, I remember running down the driveway to meet the postman and seeing that it came from Chicago. And when I opened it up, I mean, I wore that thing so much that this thing is beaten. I don't wear it anymore. I just hold on to it. But John Vogel was such a decent dude. He sent that to me. I didn't ask him to send it. Not only did he answer the questions, but he sent me the shirt, and I still love that shirt, and I have just very fond memories of him. So
Well, I guess that's what you get.
Yes, that is what.
But we've met, we've hung out with John Vogel, and he is a super, just fantastic guy. Like he literally will give the shirt off his back to the fans. I just have the immense amount of respect for him. He's great. I love John.
Such a decent dude. I mean, think about that. Like, taking the time out of your day to do that for some dude who's all the way over there. And, keep in mind, I never got – this is the funniest thing. I wrote an FAQ about the Grid, and I never played the Grid because they didn't have it in Pakistan. But I wanted to know everything about the game. So I have this FAQ probably still on a hard drive somewhere.
Well,
but
tell me, have you had a chance to play the Grid since then?
Yes. And actually, if you can give me – maybe I should save this for a different stream.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Can I do something quick and impromptu?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me.
And Fatal Kate, why don't you switch to the next slide while he's doing this?
Yeah. So we're talking about the Grid. I want to show you guys something cool.
Oh boy, what is this? What's going on? What are we doing?
The lighting is going to be great, but I actually have a Grid machine in my garage.
Oh, you have it right there?
Gosh.
Right here. Yeah. Let's see. This is probably not going to be. Sorry, it's kind of low lit in this garage, but I would absolutely love to bust it out sometime for the stream. Not the original marquee, but the rest of it's original.
Oh, dude, you gotta. If you contact Jeremy Fox, he'll get you the original marquee for that bad boy.
Yeah, isn't this thing amazing?
Dude, that's awesome. That is phenomenal.
Yeah,
Dude,
yes.
that really is. I mean, here I am asking you if you've ever played it since then. Jeez, I did not expect that.
I got to go just right out to my garage. Yeah.
Now on the screen here, we've got a picture of you in front of the Midway headquarters. Looks like you took a selfie there.
I did. Yeah. So last fall, I went to 3401 North California Avenue, which was the building where Mortal Kombat was made, NBA Jam was made, Revolution X, I think. They ended up actually moving across the street for the later part of the 90s. But yeah, it was so cool. So keep in mind that at this point, the only thing that was there was WMS, the gaming company. That actual, like, by gaming I mean like slot machines, that kind of stuff. It came afterward and it was sold. Williams sold that division over to WMS, or rather over to Scientific Games, became something else. Anyways, all the Midway stuff is gone, but I still had to go over to 3401 North California Avenue. So I had to take a selfie. The sun's right in my eyes because I'm looking right up, and the sun's right there. But there's like next to nothing around that would indicate that this is where Midway was. But I had to go. It was just so cool to be like, this is where it was. This is where it happened. So I geeked out over just like an empty building on a Saturday. And I love my wife. She indulged me totally on it. So I have I did a whole thing. I walked around and I tried to imagine what it would be like to be there in the 90s.
Crazy.
Dude, that is awesome. Well, I guess all three of us on stream have been to that building then.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, I would have loved to go inside. It was a Saturday too, or otherwise I'd have knocked on it and been like, "Can I come in?" Something like that.
I'm actually trying to find a way to get in there, because I guess the building's for lease, and I don't think anyone's bought it yet. So I'm trying to see.
Well, Reyan, you probably know a little bit about that, right?
Yeah. So keep in mind that this picture was taken in, I think it was September of last year. So sometime between September and now, the building emptied out. Keep in mind that back when I originally, when I took that photo, there was still stuff in the offices. I could tell through the windows that people were working in there. There was stuff from their desks. But since then, I think they just shuttered that and they sold that. And this is the first time since the 1940s the building's been empty, which is crazy. I mean, that's a long ass time since the 1940s.
That's a huge building. For those who have never been by, or for those who don't know, that is a giant complex.
Ginormous.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to visit the inside of this building when Mortal Kombat Online did a fight night back in 2004 for Mortal Kombat Deception back in the IRC chat. So I was one of the lucky few who's been inside of the building and saw Ed Boon's office and saw where Sal DeVito works and saw where Carlos Messina is and all those guys, John Vogel.
Hey, I got
that's awesome.
But you know what? But you've probably got a few stories to share about what that was like, right?
I've all the stuff that I've encountered has always been kind of from a distance with working on this book. It's I've always wanted what's funny is I'm writing this book and I've never met Mark Trammell or any of these other dudes. It's all been over the phone. Yeah. My budget for this book is $0. It's whatever basically is in my bank account that I'm I'll go spend it on this. So this was just on a lark that I happened to be in Chicago and saw this. But yeah, I've never actually met most of these guys. I've not met a single one of them in person.
Oh,
so
wow. Well, if you come to Kombat Kon, I'll have to try to rectify that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I met Daniel Pacina. I think it was last month or month before that. But from the NBA Jam side, all these people that I know way too much about now, Tim Kitzrow, The Voice, Sal DeVita, Mark Trammell, the whole team. I've never met any of them in person.
Yeah. But you've talked to a lot of these guys. Can you tell us how many people have you talked to while you're putting together the research for this book?
So I started working on this in 2015, which is crazy. That's a long-ass time to work on one book, especially for this. But, of course, as life stuff has come up, it's gone a little bit further out than I hoped. Also, this is a balance against a day job, so it's a lot. But that being said, so far I tallied it up the other day. I've done 68 interviews.
Jeez.
Which is staggering. And even I'm oh, my God, why did I do all these interviews? But the upside is that, I've got all this insane detail now. So yeah, so just to give you the cast list that I've got for the book so far, I've got the entire NBA Jam team. I've got the NBA Jam team. I've got Carrie Hoskins and Lorraine Olivia, the cheerleaders. I got Tim Kistro, the announcer. I got George Petro, who worked on Terminator 2 and was right there alongside everybody else. Eugene Jarvis, Defender and Robotron, who was Mark Trammell's, he used to call him his god, basically. Everybody would say that he loved him so much. That's why he joined Midway, is to work with Eugene Jarvis. I spoke to 5 people from Acclaim, not just 1, but 5. That was even harder to track down as people from Acclaim, because that's all gone. Let's see. I'm missing some big ones. Okay. So Glenn Rice, I loved Glenn Rice back in the 90s, but I talked to him for the book. He was on the Charlotte Hornets. I think he was the MVP of the All-Star game in 97. So in a game that Jordan played in, this guy was the MVP. That's how awesome Glenn Rice was. I spoke to George Clinton, who's right on my shirt over here.
That's awesome.
That was one of the best conversations I've had, or the most interesting, because I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to get George Clinton for this. Dude, he's got other stuff going on. But he gave me time, and he was a very decent guy. Talked to DJ Jazzy Jeff from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah, who was one of the secret characters. And he was a very decent guy, too. I talked to, I've got so many that I have to run through them. John Romero, that's a really cool one. John Romero from id Software and Doom. He was in Quake and Wolfenstein 3D. He was a big fan of Mark Trammell growing up. And then he ended up working with him in the later years of Midway for Gauntlet 7 Sorrows, I think is what it was, around 2002. I've got the Arch Rivals guys as a precursor to NBA Jam. I have Roger Sharp, who negotiated the marketing deal for NBA Jam.
Oh, yeah.
I've got, let's see, I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of them. Actually, let me go pull up my list and see if there's any big ones I'm forgetting. There's a huge one I'm forgetting, which is Shaquille O'Neal.
Thank you.
Yes, I was going to get to Shaq. I wanted to hold him off for the end.
Fatal Kate, but you know what? Let's do this now. Fatal Kate, can you pull up the picture of Shaquille O'Neal? And I think we have some audio to play about who Shaquille O'Neal's favorite Mortal Kombat character is, right?
You and Shaquille O'Neal, is that right?
Exactly, yes. It was actually, it was conducted back in, I think, 2016. It took me a long time to track down Shaq. Wow. But when I finally got him, it was totally worth it. And we talked about NBA Jam at first, and then we had some extra time left. So I asked him about some of his favorite games, and then we got on the subject of what they used to play in the hotel room. Magic used to play, the Orlando Magic. And I was like, did you guys ever play Mortal Kombat? And then, they played Mortal Kombat.
And nobody has ever heard this before, right?
Nobody's ever heard this before. This is brand new.
This is not on YouTube. There's no podcast that has it. The Mortal Kombat online stream is the first place to hear this. Let's do it. All right, let's do this.
I was always Indiana because I always had to have a shooter with me.
Did you guys ever play any other video games after these tournaments? I mean, were you guys ever, playing Mortal Kombat or something?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. I was always, what was his name? Liu
Kang. Yeah, Liu Kang. There you go.
Yeah, Liu Kang, because he had that. Because he had that. If you move the joystick diagonal to the left and hit the button, he always had that. A flip kick. He always did 3 times in a row.
Yeah, flip kick. Yeah. What kind of console were you guys playing on in the hotel room? Was it was it Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis or both?
Wow, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Man, so I would like to backtrack a little bit. I mean, that was freaking amazing that you got to this point. So let's back up, because we're wondering about. I'm sure there's a lot of people who wonder about you and your involvement with the gaming community and Mortal Kombat community. So what first got you into the Mortal Kombat community? How long going back have you been here, part of this?
Yeah, so I really got into Mortal Kombat in probably say 97 or so. I love Mortal Kombat 3. That's honestly, I know not everybody has the nicest things to say about Mortal Kombat 3, but Mortal Kombat 3 is my favorite. Mortal Kombat 3 for me is number 1. But after that, Mortal Kombat 4 is when I really started getting into this community and wanting to learn more. And then, MK Online, going back to the days it was mk5.org, I used to go on there, and I was part of the MIRC community. So this is all going back to the late 90s. I was part of it all. So yeah, so there was I used to post on, like I said, there was Earthrealm, which was also MK Nightmares. And then yeah, it was so cool to be part of it. And then of course there was that Mortal Kombat website I talked about that I worked on. And I see somebody in the chat mentioned that I copy pasted other grid guides. Shout out to you. I did not actually copy and paste those other grid guides. It was all through John Vogel checking it and researching it. It's just it's kind of a journalistic thing. I just kind of did that with that. So with the content that he gave me. So yeah, no, I've been part of it for a long time, and it's so cool talking to you. And well, in particular, Justin Tabmock, and then seeing you again after all these years when I recognize your names in forums, and I'm sure we chatted way back in the late '90s, the early 2000s at some point.
Oh yeah, I actually remember your username from the IRC days. The name.
Yes.
Game.
All right.
Yeah.
This is so good. This is pretty embarrassing. It was Pain Game. I don't know why it was Pain Game. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was cool. Like, this is like WWF Attitude Era time. I was like, yeah, Pain Game. Let's go with that.
I thought it was cool. Like, no pain, no gain. That's how I always thought of it.
Yeah, but Pain Game. And you know what? If you want to double check my credibility, you put Pain Game in quotes and then put Mortal Kombat in quotes, and you'll see that I was part of this chat with Margene Holden, who played Shiva in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like,
that was one of the old fight nights that we had. Yes.
Exactly. You go back to that, look at the transcript. There's some questions for me there. The young journalist me.
Dude, that is awesome. And that kind of brings me into the next question about your journalism career. And, the education that you had. Like, tell me about that, your career, your entry into journalism.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was the late 90s when I'm sorry, what am I saying, the late 90s? It was probably like the late 2000s when I started really like diving deep into journalism. So just to give you some more context, like I said, I worked for that Mortal Kombat website. That was where I did my first writing, and I always knew I wanted to write seriously. And then I graduated from college, and this was all around the late 2000s. I freelanced for a bunch of places, so I've written for Rolling Stone, Spin, Wired, American Airlines In-Flight magazine, which is not something that I ever thought I would say. Lots of alt weeklies. So like in Chicago, there's the Chicago Reader. I wrote for them. Let's see, OC Weekly in Orange County, Hartford Advocate, New Haven Advocate in Connecticut, Miami New Times, all over the place. I'm sure I'm forgetting this.
Look at this career you had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've talked to all kinds of people. I've been very fortunate. It's all been freelance, so it's been a lot of hustling. And let's see some of the non-Mortal Kombat people I've spoken to. Kesha, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was one of the coolest ones, getting Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson says your name in that Mike Tyson voice, that's like one of those moments that you remember forever. And let's see. So
Please tell me you talked to him about Punch-Out.
I did not talk to him about Punch-Out, unfortunately. No. I feel like somebody else talked to him about Punch-Out at that time. What did I talk to him about? I think I asked him about his favorite cartoons or something like that. This is right when he had that Mike Tyson Mysteries cartoon show.
Mike Tyson Mysteries, yes.
Exactly, yeah. So this was around that period. And he told me that he still watched Tom and Jerry with his kids. So yeah, let's see. Who else was there? Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 was one. Seth Green. Tim and Eric from Adult Swim, which was a pretty weird experience. Let's see, Ed Boon. Actually, before all this came around, there's that post that I posted on Twitter earlier.
Why don't you share that in the channel? Because that was an interesting article that I think you wrote for Complex.com. Ed Boon's 12 biggest Mortal Kombat memories.
Yes,
and that was cool. Yeah. You actually did some original research for this with him.
Absolutely, yeah. So one thing that I'm really proud of is that, a lot of journalism that you see online, it's all the same kind of stuff over and over again. Like one person does the interview, one person does the story, and then the other websites like take bits and pieces of it, and then they craft it into a new story, which I totally get to the degree of you need content. That's the world we live in. But for all my writing, it was almost always original stuff. There's only a handful of articles I ever wrote that didn't have it. Man, I'm remembering some more right now. Like I talked to what was it? One of the Kids Bop kids. You guys know Kids Bop? But I wrote a really good article about Kids Bop. I'm really proud of that. Let me find this Ed Boon one though. So yeah, I talked to Ed Boon for Complex. This is around the time I think it was 2012. Justin, can you tell me what was he working on Injustice in 2012? What would have been 2012?
Well, let me think. Mortal Kombat 2011 just came out, so if I had to guess, they were probably still working on DLC, like with Rain and Scarlet and all that.
Okay, yeah. There was something coming out at that time, and then, I got to speak to Ed Boon on the phone, which was great. So now that I think about it, I've spoken to both Ed and John at totally different times for totally different projects. But I've been very lucky. I've spoken to all kinds of people. There's the actor Keith David, who is in They Live and Requiem for a Dream. I've driven around in my Toyota Corolla when he came to Columbus, Ohio for something. All kinds of folks. Jizza from Wu-Tang Clan. Let's see, Madlib, who's a hip-hop producer. Let's see, all kinds of like indie rock bands, a lot of punk bands, tons and tons of punk bands.
You know, Fatal Cade is not one to brag, so I'm going to have to share this with you.
Yeah.
He had a radio career. He was a radio journalist for a while, a DJ, and he got to interview people like you interviewed Green Day.
No way. That's
tell us about
different.
Were they cool?
No, they were cool. They were really fun.
I can read you that. I see what you mean, but yeah.
They were cool. They were really cool. Yeah, it's a long time ago, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I got to interview them. I got to interview the Cleveland Indians baseball team back when CC Sabathia pitched for them. If that says how long ago that was.
Yeah.
CC he's much bigger in person. You think he's big on TV. He's much, much bigger in person. So I got to interview them. Did stuff with the Browns. The Browns when they were, the Browns. Now they look decent. I'm personally a Lions guy to get on football. I'm a Lions fan, and it's nasty this year, but we'll see. It's fun when you meet these people, because even when I got to meet like Lyndon Ashby and Robin Shue and all those guys, like they're just normal people. Like you have all these high expectations. You kind of put them on this platform. You meet them, and they're just like laid back, chill, just average Joe folks. So it's fun to get to know the human side of them versus what they put out on a stage or But it's cool. It was a fun job. It was a fun gig for sure.
That's
awesome. You know what? And I love hearing about your careers and some of the other stuff that you've done. Both of you. I mean that both to my co-host and to our guests. I just think it's fascinating to hear about some of the other things that you've done. Reyan, I would really like to know how this career turned into this book. Like, who approached whom? Did you go to them and say you wanted to do this, or how did this start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let me just give you the brief history going back to how this all happened. So I freelanced for many years, and honestly it's a tough business, and it's a grind. And the thing is, with something like freelancing, you do one project, it's on to the other, and I really wanted to do something in depth. I really want to do something where I can sink my teeth into it. There's like a real story. I've done cover stories before, but I really want to do something substantial. So I pitched a couple of books to this series called 33 1/3. They do music books, individual books about individual albums. And I did a couple of pitches for them. Neither one was accepted. Totally happens. It's good to pitch and write and get that out there. Just the act of like writing something and trying to say, okay, this is what my vision would be. Even that is productive. So I did that. And then I found this other publisher named Boss Fight Books. And they're based out of Los Angeles, and they had a Kickstarter. And they had an open call for new books about a certain subject, one game per book. And to show you some examples, this is Bible Adventures.
Oh, yes.
Durham.
Yes. Wait a minute. I think I have that game, Bible Adventures, for the NES. That's an unlicensed one.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me go through my NES collection here.
Yeah. Then I've also got Super Mario Brothers 2 over here. Yeah. They've done all kinds of stuff. They've done one of the Mega Man games. They, I believe... there you go. Wow, you just busted that out real quick. I never thought that you would have Bible Adventures just ready to go on a moment's notice, but you had it.
Well, you never know where the conversation will take you. You got to be prepared.
Exactly, you got to be prepared for Bible adventures. Yeah,
that's where I'll just literally just reach out and pull something that's totally appropriate to the topic, no matter how zany or far left field it goes. He'll have it right here, just ready to go.
That was impressive. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but and you know what? Super Mario Brothers 2 has an amazing backstory with the whole Japanese. They got one version, so we got a different one. Like insane stuff, you know. In fact, speaking about that, I'll get something else. I don't know if I'll do it as quickly as Bible Adventures, but I got something else interesting about that. But keep talking. I'm listening. I can hear everything you're saying while I'm looking.
Absolutely. Okay. So I pitched this. So I pitched those 33 and a third on those two albums as books, and then I was like, well, I want to do something for Boss Fight Books, and I pitched this NBA Jam book, and I spent a long time trying to think of what kind of game probably has a really good story that people don't know, or maybe they know bits and pieces. And I really loved Midway, and I really wanted to do something a little bit different. I was like, wow, NBA Jam means you can talk to sports fans or talk to athletes and the game community. I mean, it was huge. And NBA Jam celebrated its 25th anniversary this year. But I came up, I was thinking about this idea, back in 2015. I was just thinking, man, there's, this great game out there. I bet it's got an amazing story. So I pitched it, and I wrote an excessive pitch. I wrote 37 pages, which was just way overboard. But I really wanted this. I was like, man, I know NBA Jam's got an amazing story. And I pieced together this pitch from other stories I read and from my knowledge of Midway. And so many of these names started coming back to me. Okay, Mark Trammell, Sal DeVita, all these names are coming back to me after all these years of being part of the Mortal Kombat community. And I pitched it, and then Boss Fight Books were gracious enough to accept. And I was like, all right, okay, this is great. Now I got to write an NBA Jam book. How am I going to do this? This is a huge thing. So I found everybody I could. My very first interview was John Robinson, who used to go by the name Johnny Ballgame at GamePro magazine.
Yes.
And he's a great writer. He's out there doing stuff with WWE now. And he was the very first person I talked to, and then he sent me toward one lead, and that lead sent me over to another and another and another. And then ultimately, I've got this really great cast of all these different people and all these perspectives. Just going from the idea that I bet NBA Jam's got an amazing story. How do you make a billion dollar game, something that was huge as NBA Jam, and then have Midway make no NBA Jam games after that in Tournament Edition? And what happened over there? I bet that's got a really amazing story. And just seeing that, how sports games have changed. I mean, what do people talk about nowadays? They talk about NBA 2K. Or they talk about simulation games. But at one point, arcade sports were the thing. So going back to that era, why were they so big? What happened? What was the reason that NBA Jam stopped being made by Midway and started being made by Acclaim? So I talked to one person, another person, and then that's how I've got this ridiculous encyclopedic knowledge of Midway and NBA Jam and whatnot. It's from talking to all these people.
Well, and now there's a mobile game of NBA Jam, I think developed by EA. I'm sure you've played through that at least a little bit.
Yeah. I actually I got to speak to one of the main developers, or rather the main designer on that project too. That was a really cool moment to have NBA Jam back in a really good form after some of those late era Acclaim games were not so hot. And so NBA Jam's still around. People still love NBA Jam. I mean, just going through and researching material about NBA Jam, I've seen knockoff NBA Jam fireworks. There's NBA Jam air freshener, NBA Jam T-shirts. In this case, I think this is an officially licensed one. All kinds of stuff out there.
There's NBA Jam the breakfast cereal, NBA Jam the flamethrower.
Yes, yeah. So I found a research paper that was based on some kind of study about violent versus non-violent games and involved Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam. This is a legit scientific paper. All these crazy things. And this is just stuff off the top of my head. I've forgotten so many of these things, or at least I'll remember them when I see the list. But NBA Jam tattoos. I spoke to a woman in Connecticut with an NBA Jam tattoo. It's just so cool. There's all this love for this game. And it really is one of the best games of all time. And I don't think I'm just saying that from the perspective of somebody who's spent so many years working on this book. It just nails so many things. It's the right game at the right time. The graphics are great. It's still very playable. It's got that element of mystery of the secret characters. I mean, there's just so many things, and people are still talking about it. People still love the game. So I knew there was something, but honestly, the project has been so much more fulfilling, and I've learned so much more than I thought I would.
Busy had a
So I wanted to let you know that I did find this, and in case you're wondering what this is a rare pirated cartridge of Doki Doki Panic. It was never officially released in cartridge form, but some pirates ported it over, and it works, and it's crazy. That's the game that Super Mario Brothers 2 was, that our version, the American and the European Super Mario 2, eventually became. It was based on this obscure Japanese title. So, yeah, Mario 2 has a crazy backstory too. So I'm sure everything that the boss fight games your publisher puts out there has an amazing story behind it. And it sounds like you really did some deep digging to get some of the information that you did. So what I want to know is, I wanted you to share one interesting thing about NBA Jam that the public may not know.
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see. One interesting thing that about NBA Jam people might not know. Actually, you know what? I got one. So, of course, NBA Jam came out in the arcades, and then Tim Kitzrow, boom shakalaka, he's on fire. He does all these phrases. He actually started off, he was actually like not even the second choice. I think he was the third choice for that. First choice was Marv Albert, but of course he was way out of their price range.
Yeah.
Then it became John Hay, who was the sound designer at Midway. He did Raiden Screams for MK1. So if you listen to Raiden Screams, that's John Hay. And he was.
Wait, did you talk to him?
I did talk to him. Yeah.
Did you find out what Raiden is saying? Because everybody's being very coy about that.
No, but I could ask him sometime. Yeah, I'm still in touch with him as I'm doing more research on the book and I'm finalizing things. So yeah,
we overheard at Kombat Kon from some of the Mortal Kombat developers that he's actually saying something dirty, and they don't want it getting out.
Ooh, I have to find out. It's pretty good. Yeah, this is the mystery that needs to be solved after all these years.
It is imperative that you do this for us. Just next time you talk to him, just kind of casually drop that in there. And if you can, if he lets you record it, so much the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. So actually, this is kind of leading up to the thing that I'm thinking of that people don't know about NBA Jam, is that so this Tim Kitzrow works on this game, becomes huge, makes $1 billion in 1 year. And for context, Jurassic Park came out in '93, same year as NBA Jam, made I think something like $350 million. This is ballpark. And then NBA Jam made $1 billion in quarters. Like, this is just insane amounts of excitement and all this love for this game people have. So Tim Kitzrow, he does the voice for NBA Jam, and then he does a voice. Then the home games come, and then he ended up getting paid, I think, less than $1,000 or maybe just about $1,000 for the original game for his work on the original coin-op. So he works on the home game, and he wants a little bit more. I think it was a small number. I think it was something like $3,000. And considering that NBA Jam is like so hot, like basically how like Fortnite's all
making $1 billion, yeah.
Yeah. NBA Jam was massive, and I think he asked for some like paltry number, like $3,000, which $3,000 is a lot of money to me. On the other hand, though, that's in the context, not much. And he asks this of Acclaim for the home versions because NBA Jam has already proven to be such a success, and Acclaim says no. And then he says, I would really like this money, and Acclaim says no. And then Tim Kitzrow thought he'd lost the job, so he thought that the home voice of NBA Jam was about to be a totally different person. Or could have been a totally different person. And John Hay was talking to Tim Kitzrow, and he said, like, those guys at Acclaim, they're trying to get, they're not willing to pay that money for you. And then you're like, John Hay said, stick to your guns, keep pushing. Like, you're worth it. You're the NBA Jam guy. And he keeps pushing, and then eventually he gets this money, which was, like, again, like I think it was maybe like $2,000-$3,000, something like that. But for a moment, the home version of NBA Jam, which introduced NBA Jam to a whole new set of audiences, or a whole new kind of audience, that almost never happened with Tim Kitzrow's voice because Acclaim didn't want to fork over $3,000, which was, a drop in the bucket compared to the fact that they sold 6 million copies on the Genesis and Super Nintendo of the first NBA Jam, not even counting Tournament Edition or any of the other stuff. Just the first game on Genesis and Sega, on Genesis and Super Nintendo. 6 million copies, and they almost lost this iconic voice over $3,000.
There's so many things that I want to ask you now. My head's full of like a million questions.
Yeah.
I mean, look, can I share the fact? I hope I can. It's okay if I say this. I know that you happen to have gotten a copy of the receipt that they paid Tim Kitzrow for doing that. Are you able to put that in the book? Are you going to have that as an illustration, as a graphic?
Yeah. I mean, I hope I can, but honestly, I've got so much material and so much stuff that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to have the space. Like logistically, I mean, that's such a great position to be in. It's like you've got so much material that you're like, I'm not sure if I can keep this like amazing artifact. But yeah, I've got one of his original invoices out there, and at some point I want to throw that up on Twitter so everybody can see it right from back in the day of Tim Kitzrow getting paid for NBA Jam. This is from Mark Trammell's collection, so Mark Trammell held on to all this stuff, which is just amazing.
Historical. This is history, man. This is so important.
Yeah. So, you know, it's so cool to see stuff like that and then also get bits and pieces of actual evidence, like operator reports, and to see what arcades were making back then, and Tim Kitzrow's invoice. I mean, this stuff is like, I know at the time they probably thought, like, who cares about this crap? You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever. You work on a game.
Somebody knew that it was worth holding on to. Somebody thought, you know what? And it's like the same thing with Dan Pacino, where he saved MK1 footage, or at least a lot of it. It's like somebody had the foresight to say, hey, we're working on something huge. Anything that's even tangentially related to this is going to mean a lot to players who fall in love with our product. Like, somebody realized that this is good stuff.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad to hear that you have so much material. It's like, geez, I hope I can't use everything. I got to make the cut. Is your book going to have illustrations then? Like, have you hired an illustrator, or what kind of things are you planning like that?
Yeah, so we've got an absolutely beautiful cover by this designer named Corey Schmitz, which is actually, and Ken Bauman was the photographer of it. It's an actual basketball on fire. So, like, if you go to my,
I thought this was photoshopped.
Yeah.
No, it's an actual. It's a real.
We actually have
a real basketball set on
fire.
fire.
We actually have the
that
book
you can
cover right here up on the stream.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that thing that you're seeing, that's legit.
That's awesome.
A ball actually on fire, which is amazing.
How did they do it?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Nice. I'm gonna actually find the link and I'll just drop it in the chat, and you guys can check it out. They
you have a video?
There's a video, yeah. So can you pull YouTube onto your slideshow?
Let me.
Fade okay? That's your department, buddy. Can you?
It's all cool.
If it's dicey, let's
skip it. It might be dicey. Don't want to get into any kind of copyright infringement. That being said, though, so it was based, from what I understand, is that Ken, the photographer, took like this long piece of pipe and then attached it to a ball, taped it on there really tight, and then set the ball on fire. And I'll throw a link in there later to the actual.
As soon as you find it, just drop it in the chat, and that's awesome. And we'll that would be so cool to see. You should honestly post that on your main Twitter account. Like, here's how the cover for the NBA Jam book was made.
I should. Yeah. What's crazy is that, I've been working on this for so long, is that I actually posted on there when I started the account, but I had it was a totally different time. I had I'm so lucky I've got I think I've got like over 1,000 followers now. And back then it was just a handful, and I posted it way back then. Awesome. But yeah, let me throw it on there. I just found the link and I'm about to drop it in the chat. As far as other illustrations go, yeah, based on the space, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have room for photos. It might change. If it changes, that would be great. But I don't think I'm going to. So it's going to be all text, but it's honestly going to be, like a very compelling story. I mean, it's not just like, oh, this is just some facts about NBA Jam. Like, I take you through, what it was like to come up with that first idea. Where were they when they developed all these things? Where were they when they made it on fire? How did they find Tim Kitzrow? I mean, what happened to the game? All this stuff. There's so much material. So the text is going to override the illustrations. But, maybe someday there's going to be an NBA Jam tournament edition of the book, and then I could have some of that stuff in there.
Man, that's awesome. So,
yeah.
All right. I can't wait to see that when the stream is over. I am going to watch this immediately.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to ask you this then, because people in the chat are wondering about the release date, and I don't know if there is one, but what are you guys looking at, or what do you estimate at ballpark?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been working on this project for a while, and alas, when I first started talking about it, I was like, okay, it'll be done by this point. And then I ended up having to get more material for certain sections and fleshing things out. So I don't have a definitive release date yet, unfortunately, and that will change soon, though. So I'm just going to keep it vague. I'm gonna keep it like Ed Boon style. You know, Ed Boon will throw in some teases. I'll say soon. Let me just say it'll be soon. And well, I should have some release date information soon. Can't say definitively, but man, if nothing else, within the next year. So guaranteed within the next year.
Okay.
Likely much.
And we can see that the book is already up for pre-order on the publisher's website. You can drop a link to that too if you have it. Or you know what? I got this one. I actually have it. It's like it's $20.
Guys, I'll be right back. My cat's been scratching at his food tin for like 45 minutes. I'm like, I'm gonna ignore it, but it's killing me. I'll be right back. Okay.
In the meantime, I'll just say this to the chat. I can see on the website bossfightbooks.com that you can pre-order the book now for $20. And if you're an international visitor, you can pre-order it for $30. So they want $10 extra for shipping. Yeah. So you want to go ahead and read the description here that they've got written
here that's in the slide you provided me. Let's see. So it says, when NBA Jam dunked its way into arcades in 1993, players discovered just how fun basketball can be when freed from rules, refs, and gravity itself. But just a few years after Midway's billion-dollar hit conquered the world, Midway, publisher acclaim, and video arcades themselves fell off the map. How did a simple 2-on-2 basketball game become MVP of the arcade, and how did this champ lose its title? Journalist Reyan Ali dives deep into the saga, tracking the people and decisions that shaped the series. You'll get to know mischievous jam architect Mark Turmel, go inside Midway's Chicago office where hungry young talent tapped into cutting-edge tech, and explore the sequels, spin-off, and tributes that came in the game's wake. Built out of exhaustive research and original interviews with a star-studded cast, including Turmel and his original development team, iconic commentator Tim Kitzrow, businessmen and developers at Midway and Acclaim alike, secret characters George Clinton and DJ Jazzy Jeff, Doom co-creator John Romero, and 1990s NBA demigods Glenn Rice and Shaq, Ali's NBA Jam returns you to an era where coin-op was king.
Dude, look at that.
He did.
I mean, and he really did interviews with all those guys like Mark Turmel and DJ Jazzy Jeff. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Man, it was so.
No,
this is. Oh,
great.
Good, you're back. We were just reading the description.
Yeah, sorry about the delay.
On the website.
Yeah. Let me give you a rundown. So I just pulled up my interviews list, and let me mention some of the people that I haven't already talked about. One of my absolute favorites, Dan Amrich. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, who was Dan Electro.
Yeah, Dan Electro from GamePro.
Great dude. Shout out to his book, Critical Path. Everybody should pick this up. If you're interested in ever writing about video games, this is essential. And he was one of my you know what's really cool about all this is that everything comes full circle. Back in the late 90s when I was working on that Mortal Kombat website, my very first interview ever was Dan Electro from GamePro about something in the community at the time. And then all these years later, I interviewed him again, but now for my first book, which is just super cool. That's super full circle. I've got some names over here that not everybody would recognize, but they're part of the Midway crew, behind the scenes. There's somebody over there named Jim Green. So if you ever see those classic promotional videos that were out for arcades, Jim Green was the voice of a lot of them. I'm certain he did a Mortal Kombat one. Let's see, John Root, who worked with Midway during the NFL Blitz era. Stephen Howard, who was one of the motion capture guys, or rather the digitization guys for the bodies in NBA Jam. Let's see, I've got some other ones over here. Let me look through. But yeah, I've got the original team. Trying to think of anybody else who's really an outlier. I mentioned all the big ones. Actually, here's a cool one. Air Dog, who was a secret character in the home versions.
Oh, yeah.
So, I tracked down Air Dog, and that's another person who's kind of flown under the radar, but he's also iconic. I mean, that little kid.
To Air Dog, that must have been a real howl.
The puns.
All right, well, I enjoyed the stream, guys. Air Dog was great. Air Dog was very cool. It's so cool. You know what the thing is also about NBA Jam is that everybody has all these positive memories, and they've all these great things to say. Even Mortal Kombat had like, there's of course the controversy about the violence. There's the kind of negative aspect of it, or the way you can, say, okay, this is what's bad about Mortal Kombat. But then you look at NBA Jam, and there's like next to no negativity about that stuff or anything like that, which means that I could talk to a lot of people, and all these people were gracious enough to give me their time. Yeah.
So earlier you shared some stories with us about NBA Jam. I want to know if you can share something with us about the Midway culture in general. Maybe, I know you've talked to a lot of employees there. We've heard some things before from people at Kombat Kon. We've talked to Josh Sway. We've talked to John Podlasek. We've talked to some other people. But I want to hear your perspective, and I know you heard kind of secondhand from a lot more peeps. What can you tell us about what it was like inside the Midway building?
Yeah, absolutely. So with writing a book like this, especially when Midway closed shop in 2009, and then of course even by 2009, so much of that classic era of the early 90s that everybody knows and loves with NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat, all that stuff was gone. So I'm kind of like piecing together stuff, basically checking accounts against other ones, talking to people here and there, seeing what kind of information I can get, what kind of perspective. But what set Midway apart was the fact that these guys. And just the first thing I would mention is that these guys love to put themselves in their games, which, you see nowadays, like where developers here. Yeah. But back then there was like, it wasn't the same kind of thing. You would kind of keep your talent close to your chest. You wouldn't let people know that these are the designers I've hired and whatnot. But the Midway guys, they're like, screw it. We'll put ourselves in our games. We'll make the sounds. We'll be the digitization actors. We'll do all this stuff. So there was a real sense of you can do anything at Midway. It was basically a Wild West. You come up with an idea, do it. Mark Turmel, he threw those Mortal Kombat characters in NBA Jam. He didn't ask the NBA about that when he did that, because they would have said no in a hot second. But he was like, you know what, I'm going to do it anyways. So that was the Midway philosophy. There was a lot of camaraderie. These guys really got along well, and they, I really sense there was so much affection between them. But there was some competition too. Everybody wanted to have the best game. Back when Coin Up was super hot, everybody had this kind of friendly competition of okay, your game sold this many cabinets. Well, I want my game to sell more. And, there was a lot of that over there too. But as far as the culture itself, it was like these guys would hang out together. They would go and drink together. If you ever want to track down this place, this is cool. There's this bar called Oinkers, which is long gone. Now it's an Irish pub. But that was back where I used to go back in the early 90s for the gossip. Like if you want to know what's going on at Midway, everybody would get together and drink at Oinkers.
That's where you go for the hot goss, huh?
Exactly, yeah. When all these guys are like off hours, they're talking and whatnot. But yeah, these guys were really close. They used to work real late at night. They would play first-person shooters together. I remember John Hay told me I think Descent was very big at Midway when that came out. These guys were always playing games with each other, always playing each other's games, going into each other's office. When Mark Turmel puts in the dunks, people start walking down the hallways and saying, I've heard this game has these dunks. Let me try it. So people started going to his office. So the culture was lots and lots of, it was very open to lots of new ideas and being creative and very opinionated. So Sal DeVita said that, Mark Turmel and Jamie Rivet, I think it's Rivet or Rivet. It's Rivet, I think. They come up with this On Fire. All right. So they come up with it. They bring it up to Sal DeVita, and they're like, hey, we got this idea. And Sal DeVita says, that's stupid. I'm not doing it. They're like, will you make those fire graphics for us?
He's the artist, Sal DeVita, right? He's doing the artwork.
I'm sorry, yeah. Sal DeVita was an artist on NBA Jam. That's where he got his start at Midway. And Mark Turmel comes up to him and is like, yeah, will you do these fire graphics for this idea I've got? And Sal DeVita's like, that's stupid. I'm not going to do it. So he refuses to do it. He refuses to do fire. So Mark Turmel has to go use some graphics from Smash TV and throw that in there until Sal DeVita's like, oh, yeah, actually, you know what? This is pretty cool. And, of course, Sal DeVita saw the error of his ways. But these guys were just very opinionated. They'd say, that sucks. This sucks. These guys would just say, there wasn't a lot of – they were just felt very comfortable around each other, which is so cool. Yeah. And that's what I think led to really good games. Is they were very critical of each other, and they would say, that's great, that's cool. They would say, that sucks. These guys, especially the NBA Jam team, they would argue. They would really argue. So I'm sure it happened with Mortal Kombat too. At some point, the Mortal Kombat team, I'm sure there was some stuff going on over there. But these guys are very passionate,
That is really fascinating how he pulled graphics from another game and imported them just to make the concept work. And I assume after that happened, Sal DeVito went and did the artwork and made it, custom tailored for the NBA Jam sprites, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything changed after these ideas started coming together. You know what? Here's something else that you don't know about NBA Jam. So if you played NBA Jam, you know how you can do those dunks, you can go really high, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the ideas that Mark Turmel had was he wanted to do it like in Super Mario 3, where if you play Super Mario 3 when you're in the Tanuki suit, you can fly and you can kind of go up and down and control your movements.
Right.
You can control
and also
them
with the Raccoon Leaf, they both kind of work on that engine.
There you go. Yeah. So that kind of idea, Mark Turmel wanted to do that with the dunks. He was like, let's see if maybe you can move your height up and down in midair. And then Sean Liptak, who was one of the programmers on the game, one of the unsung heroes, he was like, that idea is stupid. Mark Turmel's like, well, I want to do this idea. Do it for me anyways. So Sean Liptak does it, and he puts basically like a Super Mario 3 style effect of moving up and down of the dunks instead of it just being an animation. And then it doesn't look very good and doesn't play very good. So Mark Turmel's like, you're right, get rid of it. But he still did it anyways. So
sometimes you got to try things to know what works and what doesn't. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but I mean, they're willing to try it though. I mean, they would try these bizarre ideas. Like if you come up with the idea of On Fire, like before NBA Jam, like that seems like a weird idea. You know what I mean? Especially with what you could do with basketball games at the time. But these guys were like, you know what? We're gonna try it. We're gonna do it. And then of course that leads to this game that's this huge sensation, makes $1 billion. Yeah. So. It's
all right. So I got a couple other questions that are backed up, things that I've been meaning to ask you for a while.
Of course, let's go for it. Let's fire away. What's the community got to say?
Well, we want to know about some of the changes that were made to NBA Jam between revisions. Midway took out the backboard shatter in Tournament Edition. Why?
Yeah, that was on the NBA's request. So what happened was they originally added the backboard shatter towards the very end, or I think this was actually after Fire came in. Sal DeVita, actually the same guy who said no to Fire, said yes to the backboard shatter. He came up with the idea for the backboard shatter, at least from what I understand. So they put in the backboard shatter because they're like, well, Sal DeVita's idea is that what makes Midway special is exaggerated reality. So that it's, you get the idea of it being real. Like Mortal Kombat looks real, but it's clearly not reality when somebody's uppercutting somebody like that or you're going into a pit. So exaggerated reality, that was the idea of Midway. So they come up with this idea of like, okay, what can you do in a real basketball game that would just be kind of exaggeration? Well, that was back when I think Shaquille O'Neal did this huge dunk where he shattered the backboard. So they throw that in.
Yeah, so that actually is reality.
That is reality, yeah. But it was a cool thing they could throw in there. And then after that, the NBA for Tournament Edition, they kind of were like, don't put the Mortal Kombat characters in there. And we don't like this backboard shattering thing either. Like, this is not what basketball's about. So they made them take it out, which was unfortunate. But then years later, when EA made their version in 2010, they actually brought back the backboard shatter. So, things changed. I mean, the NBA is a big company. Obviously what they say has to go. So then it was the one. If you're ever wondering why you can't do the backboard shatter, it's because of the NBA.
Makes sense. Well, thank you for explaining that, because some of the people were wondering.
Absolutely, yeah. And I also want to mention that I actually got somebody who worked at the NBA, too, in the licensing division. So I got both sides. I got the Midway side and the NBA side.
Well, you got more than that. It seems like you got like 4 sides. You got the Midway side, you got the NBA side, you got the Acclaim side. You got all kinds of. Did you talk to anybody at EA?
I did talk to somebody at EA. I talked to Tracy.
So you have multiple sides, then. You
so awesome.
don't just say you got both. You got plenty.
I do, yeah.
All right. So what about this? I think a lot of us who've been following Midway Games and NetherRealm's career and Acclaim's, and people who've been following behind-the-scenes stuff for a long time are kind of aware that Midway and Acclaim had an agreement where Acclaim always got the right of first refusal on any Midway title that came out. And that was why Acclaim got to do the Mortal Kombat games, as well as some other games that they ported to the home consoles that were popular in arcades. But for NBA Jam, things worked a little bit differently. Did you investigate that at all? Did you hear about that? And what can you share with us about how that worked?
Absolutely. So, of course, I'm like talking about all these great stories. This would be maybe the 1 or 2 stories I keep close to the chest because I really delve into it in the book. But yeah, so Acclaim and Midway they started this agreement in I think 1990 or so. It was 1989. Neil Nicastro, who was the CEO of Midway, and during all the famous games, if you go play Mortal Kombat, wait till the credits, you'll see Neil Nicastro's name at the end.
He's in there. Yep.
Yeah. So Neil Nicastro, the Nicastro family had a house in Oyster Bay, New York. Oyster Bay, New York was where Acclaim had their headquarters. So there was some kind of business connections. They make the deal with Acclaim. This is 89, 88, 89, 90. And then the deal goes on for years. It's very profitable for Acclaim especially because think about it this way. When you think about Mortal Kombat at the arcade, like Midway isn't making money off of those coins going in directly. The arcade operators are. They're basically buying the games from Midway or renting them from a distributor. So Acclaim, on the other hand, they're able to get it's pure profit in a way. They're making the cartridges. They have to do a lot of marketing, but cartridges, compare the prices, like, what you're going to make off of these things. So Acclaim made a lot of money off of these Midway properties, and then things started to go south toward the end as Midway says, you know what, we want to get in the home game market. So they buy this studio out in, I think it was in California.
I think it was in Texas, maybe?
Texas. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was Texas. You know your stuff, Tabmock.
Sorry. I'm not trying to rain on your parade here, but keep going.
Not at all. No. Absolutely. We want to keep it accurate. Yes, it was Texas. Trade West.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah, which used to be Leland Corporation. Most famous game from them, I'd probably say, is Ivan Stewart's. I think it's Ivan Stewart's Off Road. There's like a great arcade game. That's that was by Leland. I think it's Ivan Stewart. Anyways. Midway buys a home division for themselves, and they're like, well, with Acclaim, they're like, maybe we'll split up. But Acclaim still wants to work with Midway because, of course, Midway comes up with all these brilliant games, and Acclaim makes the conversions. So then the agreement they decide to part ways sometime 94, 95 or so, and then Midway never makes another NBA Jam game, never. Like that's it, forever. Like this game that they made in this huge thing. They never get to make it, and Acclaim makes all the NBA Jam games until EA gets a license in 2010.
Right, because Acclaim worked out the license with NBA Jam, and then they allowed Midway to kind of do the arcade ports, right? It was sort of like backwards from how their normal deal works.
It's actually, so this is something that, as you go through like history and a game that's very popular, you've got different people saying different accounts. One person might be like, oh yeah, I came up with NBA Jam, or I came up with this, or I came up with that. And when I found out,
I want to get it right. I want to sort through the confusion and make sure we get the details accurate.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is one of those things where there still are conflicting reports, but based on what I can tell, the most accurate would be to say that Mark Trammell starts working on a basketball game. Neil Nicastro comes up to him and says, "We should put real player heads in there." Mark Trammell says, "That's not going to happen. How are we going to get that? How are we going to even get something with the NBA?" And he's like, "We should try to get it. We should try to make it happen." Then Roger Sharp at Midway ends up negotiating with the NBA, and then Acclaim licenses that game from them later on. So Acclaim had a relationship with the NBA too, but it was a little bit separate, and then it starts to be the same. So with these kind of networking situations in the business world, you go from this thing to that thing, and it's kind of messy. But NBA Jam, as far as I know, and all my research has led me to, is that it was a Midway idea, and Midway got the license, and then Acclaim ported the game. But then, of course, Acclaim ended up with the license.
Well, I guess we've all heard a lot of fake news here about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My, that is news.
Haunted forever.
Oh gosh.
Fake news.
Oh, that is. Yeah. Oh. Hey, can we talk about Donald Trump and NBA Jam for a second?
Wait, there's a Donald Trump NBA Jam connection?
You think that? Of course there is. Everything's got an NBA Jam connection. I spent 3 years of my life working on this thing. I got a connection with everything. You can be like, oh, what's the connection between that?
Did you interview Donald Trump for the book?
I did not know. That would be something. No, but of course, the president's being in NBA Jam was a very famous thing. So somebody made a hack, NBA Jam 2K17, in which you can play as Harambe, and you can play as Donald Trump. So you can play as Donald Trump in NBA Jam with a hack out there, which is crazy to me that exists. And then there's also another thing called Trump Jam that somebody made, I think is what it's called. And you remember there's a thing in Puerto Rico where he was throwing those paper towels?
Yeah.
Somebody took that and they set it to Kim Kisro's announcing and the NBA Jam music. So that's out there too.
Oh, God. You know, this reminds me.
Yeah, so
back in
there's
the
these
90s.
connections. Yeah.
This reminds me of how back in the 90s there were so many rumors, and of course Mortal Kombat fans can relate, but there were rumors about NBA Jam where, hey, there's a secret way to play as Darth Vader. There's a way to unlock Hillary Clinton. Like, I remember all these crazy things being said because they threw so much hidden stuff in there. You kind of had to believe that, well, maybe they did hide some more stuff there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the coolest things I found out in the process was this FAQ that Dan Amrich, Dan Electro from GamePro Magazine, wrote about NBA Jam. And he spent a section just mentioning the people who are not in the game. So he's like, okay, who did he mention? Rush Limbaugh is not in the game. Charles Manson, Darth Vader, Al Pacino, Ermac from Mortal Kombat. None of these people are in the game. Michael Jackson. He said that somebody told him that they thought that Michael Jackson could do a halftime show in NBA Jam, which would have been like, why would you hide that if you got Michael Jackson doing a halftime show for your game? But these rumors were so big that like he dedicated a section of this FAQ to be like, these people are not in NBA Jam. Darth Vader, I think, was on the list too. Barney was on the list. But yeah, all kinds of weird stuff. But with NBA Jam, some of these people were in there, which is crazy. Well, not that list, but other ones. So.
All right. So what I want to know now from you is what kind of stories do you have that I know you've conducted tons of interviews, but what Mortal Kombat stories can you share with us? You must have picked something up.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. You got to give me a minute to think about this one.
We'll come back to that.
No. Oh, go ahead.
Another user was asking something.
Yeah.
What kind of crossovers would you like to see? And I don't know whether they meant Mortal Kombat crossovers or NBA Jam crossovers. So maybe answer both of those questions if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, of course. Crossovers I would like to see. Man, you know what I would have really loved to see is Terminator 2 was made by Midway and NBA Jam was made by Midway. Why wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger in NBA Jam? Why wasn't T-800 in NBA Jam?
That should be a thing.
Excuse me. That should have absolutely been a thing. So that, I would say, is the first crossover that comes to mind from that era. Like,
I'll be basketball.
Yeah. Right, that was a good one. It was better than the How one, but I'm just teasing. No, yeah. I would have loved to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in NBA Jam. You know, I love Mortal Kombat first and foremost, but I also love some Street Fighter. If we could have Blanca in NBA Jam, like I would just feel amazing. I would just radiate with joy. Those are some crossovers. Other general crossovers I would like to see, man. I mean, this is the dream one that everybody wants to see, but I would really think it would be interesting to see Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat by Capcom, and then Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat by Warner Brothers. I would love to see this.
That's the crossover everybody wanted to see, but you just nailed the execution of it because nobody was sure how to make those two ideas mesh. You just solved the age-old riddle. How do you combine Street Fighter with Mortal Kombat? You do it twice.
Exactly.
One of them will be the block button will block, and the other game will be the back button will block. Thank you for fixing that issue. And look, if they really want to go old school, instead of making it 3D, you'd make it 2D. Both games can be 2D. One of them hand-drawn, one of them real-life sprites.
Exactly, yeah. So Capcom, Warner Brothers, if you're listening, send me my check because I'm waiting for it. That's a brilliant idea. But
you just solved the riddle of the ages, man. The crossover from the 90s that everybody wanted, but nobody quite got until Mugen came out and did it.
Yeah, Mugen is amazing.
Oh, man, good job, buddy. Good job.
Yeah, well, thank you. Actually, to be fair, I think I stole this idea from Street Fighter versus Tekken, which I think was supposed to be made by both companies, but they ended up doing just one version. Yeah. But, man, I would love, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat are very different in so many ways, but, I think they would, if you balanced it right, if you designed it right, they could go together super well. So,
that'd be off the chart.
Blanca versus Raiden, like electricity versus electricity. That would be so cool. Why is that not happening? Yeah.
Okay, that would be. I'd be shocked if they didn't do that.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about that Mortal Kombat question from earlier, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, while you're thinking about a Mortal Kombat story for us, can you give everybody a link to a preview of your book? I know there's a way that they can see chapter 1, I think it is.
Yeah. Actually, this is the epilogue. So I've got
the epilogue. I'm sorry, I was thinking prologue in my mind for some
Oh,
reason.
no sweat. No. What am I saying? You're the one who's right. I can't even get it right about my own book. The prologue, exactly. You're right. No, the epilogue is going to be within the book itself. But yeah, the prologue. Let me go and put it out there.
And look at this. See Busy Lowell just pre-ordered the book. I just thought I would mention that to you.
Oh, Steve Busy Lowell, my guy. Oh my gosh. Hey, if you are too kind. Hey, you know what? If you're on Twitter, please add me and then tweet at me and then let me DM you something cool. I've got all kinds of cool stuff in my archive. That is super awesome. Thank you so much for the support. I'm incredibly grateful, and I would love to send you something like weird and obscure, maybe a couple of things.
Wow, dude, look at this.
Yeah.
All right, so speaking of cool and obscure stuff, what kind of cool merchandise did you pick up from all this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. I got to come back to a couple of these things. We've gotten through so much stuff. I'm like, I want to talk about the prologue. Got to talk about Mortal Kombat more. All right. So let's see. So let's I've spent, like I said, I've spent so many years working on this. I've come across all kinds of weird stuff. And I just want to show off some key pieces from my NBA Jam collection that I've gathered.
That's awesome.
So you see I'm wearing this shirt with Mark Turmel on it. That's Mark Turmel right there. MJT, March 22 in NBA Jam. And then George Clinton. But Homage does a whole series, and I've got the NBA Jam logo.
Love it. Love it. Classic. Simple.
Oh, nice.
I've got the Utah Jazz.
That looks familiar. Yep.
Yes, the classic one. That's the one from the photograph outside of Midway that I took.
Oh, yeah.
This one is thanks to Tabmock. He shouted out Homage on Twitter. This didn't actually exist in NBA Jam, but it's still cool to imagine the Minnesota Timberwolves in NBA Jam. And if you're looking where to find these shirts, just look up Homage. HOMAGE.
Yeah, Homage was giving away some shirts, and I said, "Hey, you guys should do. You guys should give one away to NBA Jam, the book. He's done so much." And they said, "Sure," and you got it.
They were there. That was very sweet of you, and that was very sweet of them.
Yeah, we'll give them all the credit.
Now, this was my team. This is the classic one, the Seattle Supersonics.
Kemp and Peyton.
Yeah, can you see? Can you see?
I can. Yeah.
Great. All right.
Yeah, with Kemp and Peyton, we see.
Yeah. Everybody thinks they were an NBA Jam. They weren't. They're an NBA Jam Tournament Edition. But the cool story about this is that Gary Payton wasn't an NBA Jam. Trammell and all, they didn't select him for that. And whatever the case is, he didn't end up in the game. But he loved NBA Jam so much, he wanted to be in the game before he was actually in the game. Like, he wanted to be in NBA Jam, the original, even though he ended up being added to Tournament Edition. So he sent over his own photographs. He took all those photos from those different angles, and he sent them over to Midway. And they added him to the game to the original NBA Jam, and then they did the same thing for Michael Jordan, and they did the same thing for Ken Griffey Jr. So these guys loved NBA Jam so much they took their own headshots. I mean, Michael Jordan is willing to license his actual likeness to NBA Jam, but the game's so hot, he's like, I need to be in NBA Jam anyways. Take my picture from these angles. That's crazy. Think about that level of influence.
Did those basketball stars get paid anything for being in NBA Jam?
That's a great question. From what I understand, you know what? Actually, somebody asked me this years ago offhand, but I don't remember what I told them. I don't think that they got paid specifically for that. I think it was something within their contracts. One cool thing they did get.
Wow.
Believe they were offered an NBA Jam cabinet, a piece, I think, and a lot of them ended up loving NBA Jam. And taking them up on the offer.
Wow.
Sean Kemp, he had an NBA Jam cabinet.
Oh.
Gary Payton still has his NBA Jam cabinet. Shaquille O'Neal has 2, I think. Still to this day. I asked him, like, do you still have it? He's like, yeah, I still have it in my home in Florida. It's crazy. But at least he still has it.
There you go.
Larry
if I ever have a chance to visit his house, I'll name drop you, man. I'll mention you.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can throw me a shout out, yeah. Maybe check the book too, yeah. But yeah, all these people love the game, and that's what I think is also really cool about it. Is that you don't often hear about a game where the people who are depicted in the game become huge fans of the game.
Right. That's true. That is true. I mean, in the Mortal Kombat world, which is mostly the games that we're familiar with in our era, we can see, especially from going to Kombat Con and events like this, we can kind of talk to the players and we can figure out who really is into the game and who really this is just a thing that they did once that they don't know too much about. You know what I mean? They all feel a little differently.
Yeah. And no, what's cool is that like this isn't like just like a thing like, okay, NBA Jam, I've heard of it, which is, it's totally fine. Some people will hear of it, they're not into games, but these people are actively playing it. I mean, Shaq was playing it. Glenn Rice was playing it. Glenn Rice said to me verbatim, I was an NBA Jam junkie. He said it in the same kind of voice that I'm saying. I was an NBA Jam junkie. This is a guy who's a professional player making millions of dollars. He wants to go play his digital version on an arcade game. That's how big NBA Jam was, and that's why you can't understate how popular it was. I mean, honestly, Fortnite is so massive right now, I would absolutely compare NBA Jam at its peak to Fortnite. Because when NBA Jam was hot, it was the hottest thing. Like, you guys know when Mortal Kombat was hot, it was like, this Mortal Kombat was like the peak of the culture.
Oh, you had lines outside the arcade from people just waiting to get in so they could play the machine. Like, it was crazy.
Exactly.
And same thing with the movie, by the way. When it was a movie, I remember opening night, the lines went outside the movie theater and people waiting in line just for that one movie. People couldn't get tickets.
Exactly. Hey, you know what I just came up with? I came up with an answer to the other question.
Oh, Mortal Kombat story.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a story, so apologies if I kind of sidestep it, but I'm trying to think of connections between the game that we haven't already talked about. One of the coolest things is, I'm not sure if it's there in Mortal Kombat 3, but it's definitely there in Ultimate, is if you just let the attract mode play, if you just let the demo play out, you'll see this credit screen, these high score screen, and then in slots 12 and 13, I think, it'll say, it would say things before, like, it'll tease games that are coming up, and it's 12 and 13, it says NBA 2, TWO, as the initials. And this is back before they'd released Hang Time and after Jam, after they lost the license. They knew they were going to make another NBA game because they were going to negotiate the contract for a new game, but they still teased it in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. So if you go back and look at those track mode credits, you're going to see NBA 2, and there's a reference to NBA Jam right within Mortal Kombat.
I remember that, and I remember seeing references to wrestling games. Yeah. I remember seeing a reference to Street Fighter, because one of the initials is Ryu. Like, that stuff sticks with you. You see those screens enough times over the years. You remember, and you kind of piece together what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They were great at the cross-referencing. Like, all those pictures we showed earlier of the characters crossing over, being cross-promoted, that was something that Midway and Acclaim were both very good at from a marketing standpoint.
They were great at it. And actually, this is kind of a Mortal Kombat story. Well, sort of. But I know that, when the Mortal Kombat movie came out, of course this is huge. Nobody was expecting a Mortal Kombat movie after they made this game 3 years earlier. But everybody at Midway, they all got together and they went out to the theater and they all saw it together. And there's still photos out there. They're all goofing around the lobby. They're taking photos. They all celebrated this amazing moment. So Mark Trammell, the creator of NBA Jam, is right there next to the gang from Mortal Kombat. Yeah. And all those people. So, it's so cool, going back and seeing those photos. These guys were close. So, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody who worked on NBA Jam in some ways influenced Mortal Kombat or vice versa, because these guys were talking all the time. And I'm sure there's all kinds of facts that we've, will be completely forgotten at time, where somebody says, oh, change that, make this way, make it that way. So...
no, I think you're 100% right, and I think a lot of that, too, will just come from playing each other's games and being, oh, I see the way the character reacts when he gets pushed or when he gets punched. I got to change my game and modify it a little bit to be more like this, because this really works.
Yeah.
So, look, I think it's getting late in the stream.
Goodness.
What we ought to do is start the trivia bot now, huh? Start up a game of trivia.
Okay, all right, excellent.
Absolutely.
That being said, after this, though, I want to show you a couple more pieces of NBA Jam memorabilia, but let's get the trivia going first.
Yeah. Well, no, the trivia is easy, man. We don't have to do it. We don't have to wait. We can just show off stuff because remember, guys, the prize for tonight is going to be an original 90s era NBA Jam arcade flyer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Straight from Midway headquarters, straight from 3401 North California Avenue in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, jeez. I thought I had an encyclopedic knowledge. Jeez.
I got NBA Jam coming out of my ears. I wake up and I think about this game. I go to sleep and I think about this game. That being said, though, when you read the book, you'll be like, wow, this all actually comes together. This guy's able to make this complete coherent story out of all this stuff. And that's what's cool, too, is I've got a whole story about where all this stuff is linked together and as opposed to just shoving it out there. But anyways, so, it's, man, it's crazy. I've learned a lot about NBA Jam.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you learned a lot about a lot of Midway titles. Is there anything else you heard besides? Is there anything else that you learned about besides NBA Jam and besides Mortal Kombat? Any other games that you might have picked up some knowledge on?
Little bits and pieces. I'd say Revolution X. I didn't really learn a whole lot about that. Of course, that was the one with Aerosmith. And George Petro, who I spoke to for the book, who worked on Terminator 2, he worked on Narc, worked on War Gods, worked on Revolution X. He told me this great story that Steven Tyler said. So Steven Tyler, of course, singer of Aerosmith, he's in the studio at Midway, and he says, he's really impressed. He says, man, you guys do amazing work, even in this shitty place. So,
and that's one thing that I wanted to get to, is that we've heard a lot of stories about kind of the rundown conditions of the Midway building.
Yeah.
Can you share some details about that?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Here's a nice little snippet. Midway had a rat problem. And, yeah, it was like a seriously bad rat problem. I think it was Eugene Jarvis that told me that it got so bad at one point, the office vending machine, they cleared out the bottom 3 rows because the rats would always get to those first. They would get to those. So they basically had to, leave some barriers so the rats couldn't get up there and grab the food. So the rat problem at some point was so bad that they had to empty parts of the vending machine. And I'm like, that is disgusting. That is horrible. You guys need to take care of that. But it was really, really, really bad. They would, rats were I believe people would run over rats all the time because they were always on the streets, the Midway building wasn't in the best area either. I mean, it wasn't in the worst area, but it definitely wasn't the best either. So there was definitely a big rat
guy we
problem.
interviewed with Josh, John Podlasek. He had a story about how I guess there was a flooding in the building.
John Podlasek?
Podlasek, yeah.
Dear God, the building is literally falling apart.
Yeah, there was a bucket.
Yes. Yeah.
Which reminds me, this is probably where the line in the movie came from, but it's kind of hard to believe how a handful of people in a leaky building changed the world.
Yes. Wow, I never put that together. Yeah. Man, it's so cool that there are all these little bits and pieces of these stories out there, so that even though there's not a lot of photographs, you can still get an idea of what Midway was like. And I heard about that. There's this guy named Jim Green, who I mentioned earlier, this videographer. He told me this just most amazing story about how dilapidated Midway was. He called it something like crap hole or something, like rat infested crap hole or something. Yeah, Mark, I remember sending that to you a while ago. Do you remember this description? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do, and it's funny. I didn't tell you this at the time, but I'll tell you now that I immediately thought to something that Dan Pesina said, where he called it a hellhole.
Yes.
Wow, man, all these different kind of holes. I don't know what kind of hole is next, but yeah, that's
exactly the hole in the ground. Yeah. No, it wasn't the best working conditions, but you know what I mean. That's what I think is part of the appeal. It's these guys are it's basically it's raw. It's not super polished. These guys are just they love their games. There's rats everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff over there. So man, Midway was something special. Midway was really amazing, and what I wouldn't give to just walk around the hallways, but. After doing all this research and talking to all these people who are there, I feel I can kind of picture in my mind what Midway was like. Yeah. So it's super cool. And, there's things I've forgotten, too. Fast food wrappers were everywhere. Soda cans were everywhere. That was one of the first things that Carrie Hoskins thought. She's like, there's just junk food wrappers all over the floor.
Probably not.
If you look at her figure, you got to imagine that she didn't eat like that.
Probably not. No. But she was like, these guys are developers. These guys are really into their craft. They would be cots or some kind of couches that these guys would sleep on during those crunch modes. When a game is about to ship, and they would go lay on the couch, sleep for a couple hours, then get back up and crawl over to their computers and do it all over again. But man, look at the quality of those games though. They still hold up. I still play Mortal Kombat 3, or rather Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 all the time. NBA Jam is still a great game. All those games, they've got so much personality, and I just love knowing they were made in that rat-infested crap hole. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the modern games, they have, obviously conditions are not like that. They all have moved to a different building. They all have huge teams now. They're just ginormous, and the technology is different. I think the attitude is different. the newer games definitely have a different flavor to them than the older ones. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a different world, and also those people were also young and not as successful as they are now. Like Mark Turmel, right now he's a senior creative director at Zynga, who make like all these mobile games and Match 3 games, and he's very.
Wait a minute, Mark Turmel is at Zynga?
Yeah, he's at Zynga. Yep.
Wow, and then
yeah. And I believe they work together, and they actually live right near each other.
Did Mark bring John with him?
But to Zynga, I don't think so. I think they ended up there. It was some kind of coincidence, but I'm sure it's like it was kind of like a networking thing, or one person referred the other, or Turmel referred him, or something like that. I don't think it was like just bring him over. But what's cool is that like even though they had this thing about Total Carnage, where like one goes off and makes NBA Jam, this gameplay game, or Mortal Kombat's got great gameplay too, but you get what I mean. Like this gameplay-oriented game and the story-oriented game, and they still stay friends. They still impacted each other's games, and they're friends to this day. They still hang out.
Yeah, it's really funny because John was definitely a story guy as much as he was an art guy. And you can tell that Mortal Kombat had both of those things in them. And I don't know if I ever want to say that Mark Turmel was wrong, because he has a point too. Like, you don't need a story to make a good game. Like NBA Jam doesn't really have a story. You're playing basketball. Like that's it. But on the other hand, a story can be a great thing for certain games too. Like they're both, there is a place for both kind of games. It's interesting to see how they both have their different philosophies, but they can both make successful products in their own genres.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that just at that point, John Tobias was like overflowing with these ideas, and he's like, I want to do this, this, and this. And Mark Turmel's mind was like, I care about the gameplay. Like, what's the mechanic like? Like, do you want to keep coming back to the game? Is there a reason to keep playing? Which I'm sure John Tobias, he thought that was important too. But John Tobias is like, I want to create a cool world. I want to create a cool story. So, it's just so neat that these guys are working by each other, and all their lives are interconnected. Their games are connected. Man, Midway was something special. Seriously, like the way these guys impacted each other. Also got, this is a small thing I had sitting over here.
Oh, look at that. That's a mini cabinet.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was after their first game after NBA Jam was WF WrestleMania. This is another Mortal Kombat story, real quick. Mortal Kombat 3 came out in 95. It was massive. 95 was the year of Mortal Kombat. The movie, Mortal Kombat 3, the live tour, bunch of merchandise. And Turmel and all, they make WrestleMania, which is basically a fighting game. Not really a wrestling game, more a fighting game. They make it, and then it's released at the same time as Mortal Kombat 3. So then Turmel and all, Sal Davia, they all go to the arcade to see how's WrestleMania doing. And everybody's on Mortal Kombat 3, and they're using WrestleMania, these controls, at least the real version of these controls, as a coat rack. And they're like, that's it. WrestleMania is not like, this game isn't going to take off like NBA Jam did. Like, that's when they immediately knew, like, Mortal Kombat 3 was on top of the world. So, there's another story over there, too. Like, these guys were, they were friends, but they were also competitive. You want to have the best game.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I always thought it was too.
There's all kinds of stuff like that, and all this
I always had this idea that the WrestleMania game was a success.
It was not. It was a success on the home consoles, but in the arcade, it pretty much hit the minimum. And just for comparison, I believe it sold something like 2,000 or 3,000 cabinets, and Mortal Kombat sold 20. So.
Wow.
And keep in mind that it was still like good, massive, because 2,000 is like the market needs to hit or whatever, but it was still not a success or a real hit like the other one. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. That really gives us a better perspective on how it was doing. Even though quality-wise, I'm sure it was great, but when you're up against Mortal Kombat, that's really a hard thing to compete with. And when you're in a wrestling game, that's very similar to a fighting game. So you kind of are cannibalizing your market there a little bit, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And there was this trade show after WrestleMania came out where Neil Nicastro, the CEO of Midway, comes up to Mark Turmel, and he basically pats him on the back, and he says, don't worry, you're a great designer. There's going to be other games. Just move on. Like, give it up. Like, WrestleMania is not going to make it. Like, WrestleMania is not going to be the game. I love WrestleMania. I think it's a great game, and they loved it. They loved making it, but it just wasn't like a hit like Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat 2 or NBA Jam or some of these other games.
Well, we've heard some great stories about the times that the wrestlers came over there for the digitization process. They had a really fun time there, and I think Josh Sway is probably shared a few of those before. Have you heard anything about those days?
Yeah, a little bit, bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I know that they would. I believe they used to get drunk with the wrestlers at the bar near the arena. I think that's what it was, or at least after some of these digitization sessions, they went to go out and have some drinks with them. So they used to really mess around with them. Here's something cool. This is something that you can Google later on if you're really interested in this. It's called Brawl of the Century. Google WrestleMania Brawl of the Century. Midway did this promotional event to release WrestleMania, and Bam Bam Bigelow showed up, and he threw around, like as part of the skit, throws around Sal DeVita and Mark Trammell.
I've seen this. Yes, I remember this. This is so cool.
And you know who saves them? Do you remember who saves them, Tabmock?
Hold on. Was it John Vogel?
It was not John Vogel, no.
I'm drawing a blank here.
It was Kerry Hoskins. Nice work. It was Kerry Hoskins. Kerry Hoskins comes over and grabs Bam Bam Bigelow by the ear, I think. And then he
That's right.
But yeah, like these guys are participating in skits with the wrestlers. I mean, like they're so like physical and active. Like these guys threw everything into these games.
Wow.
Yeah. Man, it's there was all kinds of stories like that. So they loved working on WrestleMania. Everybody's like, man, WrestleMania was the time of their lives. The game didn't really take off, but they loved working on it.
You know, a lot of that stuff you can see on YouTube now, and if it's too difficult to find because there's so many videos on YouTube, I believe some of that is accessible in Midway Arcade Treasures for PlayStation 2 and for Xbox.
I bet it is. Yeah, there's some great interviews hidden on those discs. There's one between like Mark Trammell and Eugene Jarvis talking about making Smash TV. I think that's really good. That I use as a source. That's out there somewhere. Yeah, so many great stuff, and these stories are hidden everywhere. I mean, again, there's all kinds of other stories that that just you need somebody to tell them, and otherwise they'll get lost to time. Like all this amazing stuff, like I found after like digging and talking to this person, that person, but like. It's just sad that like some of the stuff will probably, you'll never hear the story about, some crazy story about like, let's say Revolution X or Terminator that isn't already out there because nobody's going to write that story about them or a book or an article about them. But there's all kinds of cool stuff out there.
Well, that's why I think it's so cool that you're doing what you're doing, because not only are you going out and you're compiling stories that are already out there, like from old video interviews, from old websites, from old magazines. You're doing that research, but then you're also doing your new original research where you're going out and you're you're pounding the pavement, right? You're talking you're doing all these interviews and getting new stuff that your book will probably be the first record of it in print or anywhere else.
Absolutely. And I'm so fortunate. I've been able to talk to all these people because people love NBA Jam so much. And as I've talked to one person to another, you get more details about the stories. You fact check. With working on something like this, there have been things where I'm like, did this happen? Did this not happen? Well, it's lucky. What I'm very fortunate to have is almost everybody who's involved in NBA Jam is still alive, which is, it sounds, I don't mean to sound morbid or anything like that, but like being able to have them and ask them and to recall this or fact check this is amazing.
It is because look, it was 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
1988 that Mark Trammell started at Midway.
Yeah.
Some of these people, they fall off the face of the earth, and I mean that in every way you could take that. And it is kind of miraculous. Like, hey, thank God these legends are still around with us to share their stories so that you can document them and release them to the public and compile them together.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the coolest moments of working on the book was when I spoke to John Romero from id Software, and he says to me, he says like, it's so cool that you're doing this. It's great work that you're doing this. Like you're documenting all this stuff. This is very important because he's a big video game historian. And I was thinking like, man, this is crazy. Like John Romero, like one of the gods of first-person shooters, is like saying all these nice things to me. But I think that as a video game fan, he saw that like, look, this is a cool story. This is a great era. There's amazing stuff out there, and these guys are masters who, video games will be someplace totally different in 25 years or 50 years from now. Who knows what games will be? And we got to hold on to the stuff. These are part of our not just nostalgia, but it's a great part of our cultural history.
It's awesome that your book is coming out.
Man, there's so much good stuff out there, and it's so cool to be able to talk to these people.
I mean, the majority of it's NBA Jam, but there's other stories that are tied in with it, and it's awesome that you're catching all this and documenting it. And then, Josh
Right.
Sway's got the Insert Coin documentary for the video side. So, like, the book and Midway fans need to pre-order your book and get the Insert Coin.
Absolutely.
And I think they're going to have their heads kind of wrapped around the whole Midway experience pretty well. I think this is just great that you're doing this and putting this on paper and putting it out there for people, man, because this is awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I realized with all this interview, we haven't even said one word about what happened to Midway at the end, really. Like, as they went downhill. I've got a whole section about that. And, of course, with all this stuff, it's kind of TBD. We'll see what makes it in the final cut of the book. But I went deep into, like, why did Midway fail? Like, how do you go from making Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam, these games everybody still knows, to being out of business? And, all these, like, horrible things that happened. So I've got a lot of that too, and it's very bittersweet.
It really does seem like when you've got successful properties like that, and when you've got the talent that you have to be able to make those properties, you should be okay. You should be solvent as long as you can adapt to the changing times. And I suspect that some of that had to do with consoles killing the arcades. But was that really a big factor, do you think?
I think that was an important factor. I think Midway had to get out of the arcade business. They got out of the arcade business in 2001, and when they did, I mean, obviously, like, people weren't going to the arcades the same way they were, like, even like 5 years earlier. But what I think, a lot of things killed Midway. I'd say one of the key things was mismanagement. Like, at some point, what happened was there were different people running the company who didn't really know what they were doing, and these are the kind of people that even now, like, after all these years, the people I talk to for the book, they'll say, like, they'll like curse this guy, or they'll say something bad about that guy, or they'll be very blunt about it, because, like, Midway was such a special thing that just got squandered. I mean, the mismanagement was up there. They wasted so much money on so many stupid things, like Shaq. Okay, Shaq isn't just a character in NBA Jam. He was also on the cover of NBA Showtime, and he was on the cover of NBA Hoops. So these are like the NBA Hoops was like a takeoff of Showtime for, like, I think it was PlayStation 1, I think. But anyways, they paid Shaq, I think, like $1 million to come in and do motion capture, which is, if you're Midway, you've got a lot of money. But if you do enough of that, like, that all adds up. Like, you can't just keep doing that for, like, little relatively small things like bringing Shaq in. I mean, it's cool to have him in there, but, like, really, what's the value? But they would do that. There was this huge game that flopped. This is a really interesting story. I want somebody to do a whole article about this someday, called Fear and Respect. Do you guys know Fear and Respect?
I know fear. I just don't know respect.
Fear and Respect was this game that Snoop Dogg was going to make with Midway, and John Singleton, who had directed Boys in the Hood. So it was like, this is right when, like, Grand Theft Auto 3 was, like, the hottest thing. So Midway is like, we're going to make our own Grand Theft Auto equivalent, Fear and Respect, with Snoop Dogg. It gets on the cover of Game Informer. They release some screenshots, and then they end up canceling it. The game never came out, and it was basically just quietly shelved. But they spent millions of dollars on this canceled game. So you spend millions of dollars on this game that's gone. Who else knows where all those other millions went? So I dive into that too. And you know what? I love Midway, but I'm not afraid to talk about, like, the bad things about it, or, like, this is why they went
perfect. They made some mistakes.
No, and that's what makes it real. That's what makes it a real story, is when you can see, like, hey, you get to all these heights. How do you fall to the point where your company's going bankrupt in 2009? You guys must have made some mistakes, and it's cool to, like, get the inside perspective on how that happened. Yeah.
Well, speaking of all these articles that have been written over the years, I see that you've made quite a career across many different venues, articles that you've written for magazines, newspapers, web-only sources, some of which may not even be around anymore, because you see how fast businesses go up and down.
Long gone, yeah.
Yeah, things happen so fast. What I want to know is, are you planning on maybe taking all your old articles and releasing a giant book of them, or maybe, like, organize them by 5-year increments or something like that? Can you have the rights to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I probably do have the rights, but there's that much interest in some of the stuff. I've got, like, I would say, like, there's, like, a handful of stories that I love, and I'm probably going to share on Twitter again, that I wrote that are like, you should totally read this all these years later. But with a lot of this stuff, it would be like small articles or very specific where I'm not really sure there's an audience. But what's nice is that I have the originals out there somewhere, like the actual text I wrote for a lot of these. So maybe we'll see what happens with stuff later on. But there's always so much more new stuff to write that I'm like, that stuff was cool, but like there's like 5 articles, maybe like 10, 15 articles I want to keep. But like let's write some new stuff. You know what I mean? Let's get NBA Jam out there. Let's talk about NBA Jam, and then let's also see what's past NBA Jam and stuff like that. So I've got some really cool ideas for stuff that I want to work on after NBA Jam too. So, but NBA Jam, of course, is the main focus, and you guys can tell I'm like real deep in NBA Jam. Like,
Jamologist.
When I'm like 20 years from now, I won't remember any of this stuff. But for right now,
Jamologist.
I'm like the Jamologist. I know everything NBA Jam.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, the esteemed Jamologist. Yeah, yeah.
So what do you like to put on your toast?
I don't really like. I think jelly maybe or butter. Or I'm not falling for the bait, Justin. I'm not doing it. No, I'm.
Is it jam?
Okay,
do you like to put
jam
on your toast?
It's jam. Okay. All right. You got it out of me. Yeah. So much cool stuff. So yeah. So just to jump back to a couple of the things we talked about earlier that I realized and all the stuff that we got lost on or sidetracked on was the prologue of the book. If you guys want to read that, I absolutely would encourage you to do it. It's really cool. It's over at Kotaku. They were kind enough to run it. And it's all about the very first night that NBA Jam was on test. So I take you right inside Dennis's place for games at 957 West Belmont in Chicago. And just the very first night anybody ever plays NBA Jam. Dennis's place for games has been gone for years, but I've like pieced together bits of, from photographs, from accounts, from videos to give you an idea of what was it like to be Dennis's place for games. And I've got the perspective from all these people who are there, like on the ground, what they saw that first night. So if you want to know how people saw NBA Jam the first night, just Google, the night they turned on the NBA Jam machine, or go to NBA or twitter.com/NBA Jam book. It'll be the pinned post at the top. And if you like the style of that, that's what the book's based on. So there's a lot of cool material over there, and that's like the teaser.
Now, I also threw that link to that Kotaku article into the Twitch chat, so people can see that.
Yeah. Man, it's there's so much stuff out there too. Like, I've done all these interviews, and of course I only use bits and pieces for this actual book, like a quote here, a quote there, a story here, a story there. So I've got all these interviews that I'm sitting on that I don't know what I'll do with. I'll figure that out someday, but I want this stuff to hopefully be archived too. This is worth archiving because this is all about this one game and all these different perspectives, and you can kind of get an idea of what it was actually like. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of what's going on with that. I mean, I hold on to some of my old articles, but onward and upward to whatever's next. Yeah. I can look back on some of that stuff with fondness, like I want to hold on to it, but other stuff, there's more stuff to write about. Yeah.
So that was sort of one of the questions that I had in the back burner, and I was going to save it for the very end. But since we're there, what other games would you think about writing for? I assume that if this is a success, you'll probably want to work with the same publisher again on different games, right? Yeah.
Well, all that stuff I'm going to leave super, I'm going to let it float out there, and I've spent so long working on this book. I'm very close to the end, and I don't want to commit just yet. I've got a few ideas. I'm not gonna tell you that either. I've got some other ideas out there that I'm thinking about. I would love to do more stuff about video games. There's a few things I've got, like maybe 5 ideas for articles that have just come from working on this book that are not necessarily NBA Jam related, but they're related to other games that I think would be really cool. So, I mean, the key thing is just to be able to be consistently working. And like I said, I have a day job. I work in the insurance business, or I work in insurance websites. So it's really weird. I've got this dichotomy where I'm NBA Jam book over here. I'm talking about this book. It's super cool. I get to talk to all these famous people and whatnot. And then I go to work and I'm just calling people about their insurance websites. So the real goal would be to go back to writing full time.
Are you like Mr. Incredible in The Incredibles, where you work on the insurance company, but you help the customers out and you teach them how to navigate all the policies to get proper payments and reimbursements and all that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm Mr. Incredible without those pecs. You know what I mean? I don't have the pecs yet, but I'm still working on those. Yeah, so it's like I don't know. It's really interesting. It's my life's in a funny place. So yeah, I got all this other crazy stuff I want to do too. But I mean, this thing like the NBA Jam, I love it so much. I want to do like I could talk about this for hours. You know what I mean? Like we've already like just burned I think a couple hours now, probably more, talking about this, and I could keep going. But yeah, there's great stories out there. I have got huge plans for my Twitter account. I want to start throwing out some weird stuff that has not been out there yet. You probably weren't following me back when I started this, but I used to have a secret characters series, like way back. This is like summer of 2017, maybe late 2017. And I went through and I talked about like 24 characters of NBA Jam, one post about each of them, these secret characters. And I want to get up to 100. That's my goal. Is I want to restart the series. I want to do 100 secret characters of NBA Jam. And you're like, there's no way there's 100 secret characters, much less interesting enough ones. And there are. And there's all kinds of cool stuff out there. And I've got some, some really neat things to share. Yeah. So I'm so glad, man. Yeah. And I would, honestly, the real big goal would be to like be able to do like a little mini tour, like turn this into a slideshow or a presentation of some kind, do a live reading with the images accompanying it, and be able to talk about this stuff in detail and meet people, because I love it. And then just as we're at the end, just so I'm not sure we'll get a chance to get back to it, look at this puppy I've got.
Oh, wow. What is that?
That's an NBA Jam Tournament Edition marquee. This is what you put on top of the cabinet, on top of your NBA Jam cabinet, to be like, now we've got Tournament Edition instead of NBA Jam. Look, it's NBA Jam Tournament Edition. So these used to be on top of cabinets back when the Tournament Edition came out. And also got this puppy over here. I got a classic NBA Jam session hat. That was the original name for the game. It wasn't going to be NBA Jam. It was NBA Jam Session. And then somebody decided that NBA Jam looks better on a marquee. And then lo and behold, we've got NBA Jam.
Man, look at that.
Yeah.
You got all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. Got this ad for NBA Jam, which is how I got into the game, just having it out there. This was, one of the comics that it was published on.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. These were everywhere. You guys probably remember those Mortal Monday ads and whatnot. These were all of our comic books. This is how I
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's very special to me. But I've got all kinds of cool stuff, and there's so much more stuff to go through. Sometimes I feel like I only know so much. I want to like know everything about this game and everything about the culture. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned earlier, but you're near the end, right, of writing this book?
Yeah. So it's been an interesting process. First book, and of course, life happens while you're working on these projects, and you have to do all kinds of stuff comes up along the way. But I've been working on it for all these years. I'm close to the end. So when I say soon, I do mean that soon there will be a release date. If I had it my way, I would love for it to be really, really soon, rather than just soon. But I'm close to the end, and so many more updates to come. More things to share from the book and the interviews that never made it out there, that didn't make it in the actual book. So, I'm getting there. tinyurl.com/NBA Jam book. If you want to see the Boss Fight Books entry, you can just go to bossfightbooks.com. There's all kinds of cool stuff out there. But if anybody out there has Twitter and is not following me already, NBA Jam book, all kinds of cool stuff. So please follow me, and share any cool, weird NBA Jam stuff you have. I'm always retweeting people's, finding something at a barcade, finding something here, finding something there. I just posted this photo, or I retweeted.
That's amazing.
This dude, this Uber driver, who had a Super Nintendo hooked up in his back seat, so you could play NBA Jam
and I have a
while
question
you're on your
for you.
Uber
So
ride.
if the book does really
Oh,
well,
I've heard
it
about
takes
things
off
like
if you
that.
make
Yeah.
enough
Smart.
money.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that you
it's
might
cool to see stuff
consider
like that.
releasing like a tournament edition of the book where you have a bunch of photos, of stuff, and have a bunch of photos of stuff in the book, like a lot more like pictures and stuff. 'Cause I think you're saying that you're not going to have as much of that in this, but if this does well, maybe like for $50, somebody could get like a hardcover tournament edition of this with like the photos and everything that you've got archived. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. You know what? We haven't discussed that yet, but that's a fantastic idea, and it's something I would love to do. I mean, there's all this great material that I just don't have room for or don't have a spot for. So yeah, all that stuff I would love to do something like that. That would be the dream. But taking it one day at a time. I'm just so excited that there's all this interest in the first place, and everybody I just love talking about NBA Jam with people too.
I've never seen
it's great. NBA Jam makes everybody happy. Nobody's like, boy, NBA Jam sucks. I've seen maybe one or two guys that have ever said that.
So I threw a picture of what you're talking about, that Uber driver with Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Tell me this. How many games did he have loaded into his system?
That's amazing. So I did not. This was actually one I retweeted. I did not. That was not in the car. God, if I was in that car, I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. I'd probably be telling this guy to go around the block one more time. Because I gotta use Prince Charles in the game or something. But yeah, man, it's so cool. Stuff like that, it just falls out of the sky. I just found recently NBA Jam fireworks, knockoff NBA Jam fireworks. That some company out there in China made NBA Jam fireworks, or rather in America, and then the Chinese fireworks. Yeah, who makes knockoff NBA Jam fireworks? I don't know. Somebody does, and then somebody like me eventually stumbles upon them. Yeah, so. Man, there's just so much stuff. So yeah, but honestly, a lot of the stuff I will release on the Twitter, piecemeal. Of course, I got so much more stuff coming up to the actual launch. Yeah, there's all kinds of cool material, and Mortal Kombat itself. I feel like I could do so much about Mortal Kombat too. So yeah, there's this whole world out there, and man, it's great to go back through and look at these old flyers and look at these old games and be like, I know something about this now. I know who that was. I know what this means, So
there's a lot of hidden references, a lot of deep cut references that the audience may just take at face value, but you understand that there's a deeper meaning behind some of this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in a way, I see my job as working on this book to be the guy that's look, I take this very seriously. I did 68 interviews because I'm people love NBA Jam. They're excited about it. I want to deliver the best book I can. So, getting all this material, I feel in a way, I'm lucky enough to be the person that gets to receive this. I'm the intake. I'm the clearinghouse. Now, let me put the story out as accurately as possible and get all the stuff out there. So, yeah, hopefully, what my end goal with this is that somebody's after they're done reading the book, they're like, man, you know what I want to do? I want to play NBA Jam tomorrow or tonight. Let's go play NBA Jam. And then they play the game. They're like, oh, my God, there's that thing. There's that thing. There's that thing. Or, they start putting the pieces together, and then they want to play more old Midway games. They start seeing other things. So, I hope it's really a jumping off point for people to get back into NBA Jam in a way.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I started playing NBA Jam today, just in anticipation of this conversation here tonight. And
so,
Fade, okay, we were even talking about that a little bit. Did you play any Jam today? Did you jam out a little bit?
Down in Tournament Edition, I love. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
You're yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say NBA Jam. It's one of those games where you're I'll play one game, and then
Reyan,
all of a sudden
let me ask you
you're
this.
3 hours later.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Finish, Ryan. Oops.
Exactly. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, I feel it's almost like a work of art. I really don't think it's an overstating it to be NBA Jam is a work of genius, in terms of how it does everything so perfectly. And I get into the game development side of it too, which I think is really interesting as well. To see how do game developers think? How did Mark Trammell think we should do this, this, and this? So there's a lot of the broader stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff as to okay, this is why I made this decision. This is why I made that decision.
So being that NBA Jam is as popular as it is, it was, of course, even bigger back in its heyday when it was the current game. It was at its peak. It was just amazingly, just so many people playing it. It was just number one in just about every arcade that had it, I think. And it was even popular among the basketball players. And I'm sure that a lot of them look back fondly on that time in their lives, and probably not all of them can keep those arcade cabinets that they were given. So do you think... Have you heard that any of them still play the game either on their consoles or maybe even on their computer with an emulator? Have you talked to anybody about helping them set up an emulator who may not know how to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't talked to them specifically about emulators, but I do know a lot of them still have their cabinets. Gary Payton still has his. Shaq still has his. Glenn Rice, I'm almost certain has his. I think he had 2 of them too. Yeah, and I think it was Glenn Rice that said, if they made NBA Jam today, I would play it. Like, that love is still there. Like, 25 years later, people are still like, oh my God, NBA Jam, I love that game. So I'm not sure how many of them are actually playing it like day to day, but if it comes up and if they got the chance, I absolutely don't doubt that people would play it. I mean, in a way, like, what got me an interview with Shaq? It wasn't just me, because I'm just this unknown writer. I've worked on a lot of stuff, but it's NBA Jam. NBA Jam got this for me. NBA Jam has such positive memories associated with it, so I'm certain these guys would still play it if they could. I'm not sure if they do from day to day, but if they were in an arcade, I can absolutely see these people realistically going up to a machine and being like, okay, let me coin in, let me play this, let me get a game in, and they're there for like 3 hours. Yeah. It was made to be addicting. It's made, and there's all these little tricks he does. Like, there's all this like sneaky stuff they do in these Midway games, especially like in coin-on games they do, but especially in these Midway games. That like I kind of know the tricks now. I can see through the stuff now that I've learned so much about it. But yeah, it's so well designed. It still holds up. It still holds up.
Now there's this whole interesting field called software psychology, where the developers and programmers, especially for mobile apps, are really working hard to make every app as addicting as possible, and they even gamify a lot of things that really aren't games, but they make things feel like that. So what kind of tricks like that have you seen back in the days of NBA Jam that would have been used?
Key tricks were rubber banding. So rubber banding, so just in the event that you don't know, it's when if you play NBA Jam, if you're losing, suddenly the game will get easier, and you'll be able to dunk and whatnot to catch up. But as soon as you get good, the computer starts taking over, so that it's always even. So what worked around it?
So no matter how good you are, you're not good enough.
Exactly, yeah. You have to be. I mean, of course you can be a really good NBA Jam player, and this can not matter. But for the casual player who's just walking up to it, they feel empowered. Mark Tramel's big thing was, I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel like I can do something. Like I'm doing something immediately in the game. So that way, that's why you can just dunk immediately. That's why you can do all this cool stuff. Just anybody can dunk in NBA Jam. You don't have to know, like, even with Mortal Kombat, if you want to do a fatality, you have to know a specific combination. With NBA Jam, you just move up to the basket, hit turbo, and shoot. Or, if you're on the right track, you're just going to go and nail a cool jam. So he would do that to make it back and forth. And he would also slow down the clock toward the end of the fourth period, I think, to increase the tension. There's all kinds of stuff in there. And even now he says that it was like, it's kind of obvious at times that he's like cheating a little bit. Like if you play the game, you're like, this is BS. How is this game beating me when I was so good 5 minutes ago? But it's because he programmed it that way. So he says that NBA Hang Time and NBA Showtime, they were much more smoother and less obvious. But NBA Jam is all about that rubber banding, and that was a big thing that he did because it was ultimately about making money. And NBA Jam made a lot of money. And, Tramel told me that after NBA Jam came out and all its success, he and his wife, maybe his fiance then, they lived in a condo, I think. And then it was a nice condo, but it was a condo. And then they moved over to this really fancy house, 7,000 square feet. And everybody called it the house that NBA Jam built because of just how much of an impact this game had on his life financially as well as just in terms of his reputation. Yeah.
Definitely. Can you show us the flyers? Because if there is a winner tonight, I know you showed us in the beginning of the stream, but that was kind of a while back. So let's take another look at that thing.
Absolutely. Now, do you want to see all of my, or just a general collection of my flyers, or just
please show us all that cool stuff, man.
Boy, okay, wow.
Oh, Carnival.
All right, let me bust them out. Now, I don't think this is my complete collection, but this is a lot of them. But let me go through them. So we got Carnival. Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Now, keep in mind, of course, that some of the stuff has no bearing on NBA Jam. I just love Midway, and I adore Midway. And if the game has Midway on it, I'll play it, even if it's like not really my kind of game. So that's it, though. I love Carnival.
Midway games are special. They really are.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got the connection, the nostalgia, but also I love the idea like these guys are all there together working on these games. It's so cool. But got Hydro Thunder, of course.
Yes.
This is
Adrenaline
like one of
Rush.
those late era classics. Let's see what else I've got over here.
Oh, nice.
This is cool.
Oh yeah.
This is an NFL Blitz
Yeah.
2000 Gold Edition, like mini flyer. Let's see. Can you guys see
Oh
that?
man, that looks like almost like a postcard.
Yeah, this was something that would go out to the arcade operators. And actually, I don't think this one's been opened. I'm gonna leave this one unopened. But this one's
Nice.
out there too. Of course, I had NBA Jam. Let me see if I can find some other cool ones. NBA Showtime.
Oh, look
That's
at
awesome.
that.
There was a couple of different variations on this one, but
Did you start the new season yet?
yes, yeah. Let's see what else do I have over here. Of course, here's NBA Jam again.
Yep.
Then this is so good to me.
You keep these in such good condition too.
Yeah, got Rampage,
Nice.
which was sort of midway, kind of not midway, but still part of that era.
No.
What's this game? Oh, Hyperdrive. I don't even
Looks
remember this
really
game.
cool.
You guys remember
I
Hyperdrive?
might have to find out
I don't think I played
what
that one.
that is. And
Yeah,
where I
but it's a
can
Midway.
play it.
Yeah.
War Gods. Oh, it's so good.
I think Fatal Cade has played more Midway games than anybody.
It is
Yeah.
good. The arcade version is good on MAME.
Got it.
If you play it, you'll fall
Which
in
is-
love with it all over again. I promise.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
All right, you will see. It's worth it.
All right, we're gonna play this weekend, buddy.
All right. You know, I think you're gonna have a hard time. You know, I don't know with War Gods. Man, I feel like that game does not hold up. So I just gotta say, I wanted to love War Gods. I
Yeah.
was like, War Gods Midway. This sounds amazing.
Well, I mean the graphics,
But
yeah, but I mean
I was like, man, this
UI,
it's kind of like
the
so early
system,
3D that I feel like they're
running
still
the
figuring out what
track
they're
mode,
supposed to
like
be
the
doing.
Background screens
I was
and
just
everything
thinking the
is so
exact
well
same
done in
thing.
that game.
Yeah.
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 Here's an
And it's
example.
got a story. Like they
Yeah.
borrowed from Mortal Kombat. They know you make a good plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Exotica.
Yet exotic. Okay, cool. And you've managed to keep these in such good condition. Just WrestleMania, man.
This is one of my favorites. I just love the image of Bret the Hitman Hart with this arcade machine. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Things. Let's see, I've got Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
Oh, hang.
I have a
Time.
lot more of them than I even remember having, like this Rush 23. But that said, I think I'm coming close toward the end of the stack. I got NBA Hang Time.
Nice.
Yeah, great game.
Yeah.
Sal DeVita said Hang Time has the worst cover art ever. So if you want to look up the home versions of Hang Time, if you remember, there's like a generic guy who's dunking. Sal DeVita said it was just awful, and they said that basically Midway botched the marketing of the game. Now the best thing about Acclaim was that they knew how to market the games.
Oh, yeah.
Midway didn't. Like Midway's forte was making the games, but let's see. I showed this earlier, but Revolution X. This is
Oh, nice.
a classic, and
Mistress Helga.
yes. Let's see. So that's just a
Oh,
double.
yeah, I have that one.
What else do I have over here? Oh, I've got another NFL Blitz. Let's see. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Now, just so you know, I did find the NBA Hang Time art for the consoles, and I threw that up in the Discord, so you can see that there.
Yeah. You guys
The
can check it
generic
out.
guy dunking, like you said.
Yeah. And Sal DeVita's like he just hates it so much. He hates it with a passion.
You know, he's an artist, so I guess it's sort of in his nature to be critical of art that doesn't meet his standards.
Yeah. I also think that it was so generic. Like it didn't make it like it's a cool looking cover, but like I mean, it's not really cool. It's like there, but you know, you don't really tell like, oh, this is from the guys that made NBA Jam. Like it doesn't have the same kind of vibe. Like it should have had like somebody doing something crazy, just like jamming from up top, just a crazy visual. But it's kind of generic. So let's see. So I'm just gonna show a couple more.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I have more than a couple. Wow, here's a cool one. Hit the Ice, which is
Wow.
You guys remember this one?
Hockey. All right.
What's cool is that's George Petro over there. That's the designer of Terminator 2 and whatnot, who I talked to for the book. So these guys put themselves on the flyers.
So, man, you find so many cool pieces of trivia just from doing this research.
Yeah. So this was considered one of the worst games. George Petro also worked on this one, but he basically disowned it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he disowned it. He wasn't very fond of it. This was made with MK4 hardware because MK4 wasn't as much of a success as they thought it would be, but they manufactured all these chips.
For the Zeus chip you're talking about.
Exactly, yeah. And it wasn't that much of a success, so they had to use all these chips. So then Midway management says, you're going to use these chips to make this game. And they're like, well, this game doesn't really work with, this chip doesn't really work with the kind of game we wanted to make. And they're like, well, you're going to make it anyways. So they made this invasion game that was kind of a flop. Let's see. I'm saving one good one for that. Let me see. Okay, all right. Let's see. Oh, boy, now we're hitting the good stuff.
So
all right.
awesome.
We're at the very end. We're close to the end.
The grid.
Yeah. And there's this
Yes.
game I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of.
Yep,
It's called,
I have that one as well. I love it.
Let's see. It's called Mortal Kombat 2.
Yes, Mortal Kombat has finally met its match.
Yeah.
I actually have this one too.
Yeah. 3.
Oh. Can you read that for us? Because that print is tiny. It doesn't show up too well for us.
It says, to kids these symbols will mean power. To you, they'll mean money. So they got the $sign. It's all about money. You go into these flyers, it's all like, you're going to make so much money by carrying our game. NBA Jam's flyer says, net profits. It's all like about money.
Oh,
so,
that's a great pun for you right there.
Yeah. And we've got MK4, my beloved.
Yes.
I love you from MK4. Yeah. And then, actually, let's see. I think that was right towards the... God, these things just keep going and going. Of course, you got... And going right back to the beginning of where it all started with Midway. Got Total Carnage.
Nice.
Oh.
So
Nice.
my goal is to someday make a display with all of them, so you can get basically the history of Midway, and then smash it. Yeah. And there's probably a couple more, but I think that's the gist of them. I've got these things just keep going and going, but those are the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I really want an MK1 flyer. That's the next one I want. That's the
the one with Raiden and Kano coming out of the arcade machine.
That one's especially rare. But I want that, and I want to basically, I want to do like a whole wall of just classic flyers. So, yeah, I love flyers.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? Because this is something that's such a special part of video game history that is right there on a piece of paper. This is the original pieces of paper they sent out.
Yeah, well, look, you can get a flyer right now for MK1. Let me throw the link here up in the Twitch. But boom, there it is with Rich DiVigio and Carlos Pacina. Yeah, man, just coming right out and strangling the kid. I guess they did something to deserve it.
Actually, you know what I learned? I heard, I believe it wasn't actually Carlos Pacina in that. It's actually Sal DeVita as Raiden.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like, I was like, what? That's got to be Carlos Pacina, but I believe it's Sal DeVita actually as Raiden in that just for the flyer.
It's amazing how many stories you pick up like this.
Exactly.
All right, so what about this?
I can't even tell you who those kids are. I know who those kids are in that thing too.
That was my next question. Who are they?
They are the sons of Roger Sharp, who was the marketing director at Midway, who got the NBA Jam license and he got Terminator 2 and whatnot. Their names are Zach Sharp and Josh Sharp. And now these guys are like pinball pros. Like look up Zach Sharp pinball or Josh Sharp pinball.
That's crazy.
These guys are amazing pinball players. And they're the sons of Roger Sharp, the marketing director at Midway back in the day. And they ended up being that thing for the photo shoot.
So let me ask you this. Usually when there's a model, right, who's who's still a minor, then the money will go to the parents. So how much money do you think Roger Sharp made just by putting his own kids in the ad?
You know what? I got to be honest. I doubt he even made $1. I probably didn't even make $1. Because you know what Midway would also do? Midway would there's a disparity in pay. Like, you know, you've got these games that take off huge, but then certain people are making money and certain people aren't. You know, John Tobias actually thought about quitting Midway before he made Mortal Kombat.
Yes, you were saying that.
Yeah, and because he was like, the pay sucks. The pay was really bad, and he was just a young guy. And of course, there was no Mortal Kombat. There was nothing that was like, okay, wow, this guy's John Tobias. And then Mark Trammell actually took him to a restaurant across the street and then said, hey, you know, don't quit the job. Like, think about the creative freedom you'll have over here you won't have anyplace else. Just stick with it. You'll make something. And then, of course, he makes this game like called Mortal something, I think. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. And then he was almost about to quit. It's crazy. Like, he was thinking about quitting. So, yeah. So.
All right. Well, why don't we wind down the trivia and get ready to see if we're going to have a winner.
Yeah. And I also want to thank anybody who's still watching or stay with the stream. It's been so much fun talking about this. I could go on for hours. And thank you guys all for listening and for participating and whatnot. It's just it's so cool. I love the sense of community that these games bring out.
Productions,
definitely.
Is far above and ahead of CBusy with 33. CBusy is in second place with 16. 33 questions. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're gonna do the spinning. Okay,
excellent.
Give me 1 second here to get that
set
up.
Let's see if these guys will win something.
Right.
We got to spin to win. Yep. So the way this works, Reyan, is the guys are going to have to type !spin. I guess you're loading up the jackpot now. But yeah, once the jackpot is up, the guys will type spin, and they'll get 3 chances to win.
Okay.
And sometimes nobody wins.
So here we go. We got everything ready to go.
And that sucks,
we got everything
but that's
loaded,
part of the fun, is you got to keep playing, and maybe you'll get it next time.
Yeah.
So CBusy, it's going to be between CBusy and Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf's going to get the first spin. I think we're going to do 3 spins apiece. Or we're going to spin. You know what? Let's just spin between them until there's a winner. So we'll have Lone Wolf, then CBusy, then Lone Wolf, then CBusy. Yeah, just to see who can crack the combat code. So we'll start with Lone Wolf.
Is that how we're doing it?
Type ! Spin for us. There it is. Here we go. Oh, he does not get anything. Let's take a look at CBusy. If you type ! Spin, we'll see if he can get something going here. CBusy. Gotta spin to win. There it is, CBusy. No luck, so it goes back to Lone Wolf Productions.
Gotta spin to win. !
Spin. Let's see if you can win. Back and forth till we got a winner.
All right, so we'll just keep going back and forth between the two of them. Okay. Lone Wolf, ball is in your court, buddy.
CBusy. There it is.
Well,
okay. CBusy does not win. It goes back to Lone Wolf. This is kind of fun. Well, let's see.
My palm's getting sweaty. The tension is building. Excuse me.
Oh. Okay.
Oh,
well,
it doesn't let them send identical stuff.
Oh! Lone Wolf Productions got
it. The Twitch is blocking them from saying the exact same thing twice in a row.
Lone Wolf gets it. He always does, man. I don't know. Lone Wolf fan, he got them all
there you
to
go.
match.
He always gets it.
Lone Wolf,
he always gets
man.
it.
Lone Wolf is the winner. So we're gonna just have Lone Wolf maybe like DM his details to NBA Jam the book on Twitter, and
yeah, you can do that, or you shoot me an email, nbajambook@gmail.com if you don't have Twitter. And I will
can you do me a favor and write your email address in the chat, please?
Sure, absolutely. Also, my second laptop over here, the one I'm using to actually look at the chat, is on its deathbed. So if I just disappear from over here, it's just because this thing's just about to go. But let me put it over here.
Oh, that's cool though. You have a 2-laptop setup just for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is my broken Chromebook. Oh, here's a fun thing. Have you ever tried writing something? I wrote NBA Jam the book for a portion on a computer that did not have a working N or working B, because I spilled some rubbing alcohol on my keypad, so I had no N, no B, no 5, no 6, no dash, I think. And then at some point I was like, this is stupid. Why do I have to I'm just gonna copy and paste letters over and over again. I'm just gonna get a new Chromebook. So that's why I've got 2 of them. So
let me ask you this. Yeah. Had you considered just buying like a new $10 USB keyboard?
You know what? That sounds like that's too much of a logical. That's I don't know. That's beyond me, man. Come on. You expect me to go out there and buy a keyboard? Why don't I just try and copy and paste the N and the B and the 5, the 6, and the dash? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I should have. But I
just keep a new window open, right? With an N, a B, a dash, a 5, and a 6, and anytime you need them, just grab them.
Yeah.
Right?
And then not just that, but try to write a book with no N, no B, no 5, no 6, especially when the book is called NBA Jam. So,
if only, at least it wasn't NBA 56.
Then it would just be A. The book would be called A. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, it was one of those dumb things where like, why don't I just replace it? But then you know how you sometimes just get obstinate. You're like, you know what? No, I'll make this work. I'll find a way. So I try to find a way. I was not too successful though.
All right, now Fatal Cade, let me ask you this, buddy.
I'll just be transparent.
I don't know if we're streaming next week or not, and what your schedule is. So,
totally cool.
Do you think we're gonna have a stream next Wednesday, or we're gonna take a week off?
My situation is I have kind of fallen under a little bit of a. I guess I wouldn't really call it an illness. It would be more of a injury, right? So, yeah, it's a health thing. I got a health thing going on. So I have surgery next week. It's nothing crazy. Don't panic. Don't worry. I'm fine.
Kind of a health thing, right?
It's a
you got
surgery,
a health thing
but it's
going
gonna lay
on.
me up for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. However, when I am back and when we all get everything all back on the same page, we're gonna have a really special guest, and I don't know. Can we talk about who we got? Yes. Well, thank you, because this was. I thank you for DMing him. I told you to DM him because I was like.
You know what? I
like
think you
way
should.
too
I
far
think we should
gone
announce
on
who
my
our next
payments
guest is going to
be
be.
able to DM him, but we're gonna have the actor from the movie Mortal Kombat, Kerry. How do I can't pronounce his last name. Okay, Terry Tagawa. Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa, the actor for Shang Tsung.
Well, just
Mortal
skip
Kombat
it. Just say
movie,
Kerry Tagawa.
is coming on this stream.
But I would say Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa.
He's down to do it. We've got a date. Can we say the date yet? And he's gonna Skype in with us, and he is going to take
It won't be next
questions,
Wednesday because we're going to take a week
your
off, but it'll be the
souls.
following Wednesday, which is October 3rd.
Yes.
And your souls.
Oh
man. And
that's awesome, man. What a coup for you guys.
Yeah,
that guy
hands
is
down.
I imagine he'll make a great subject too. I can't wait to hear that.
Not to undersell you. You've been a great guest, Reyan. I absolutely had a blast talking with you tonight. Thank you so much for doing this show with us. Before you go, and before we close things up, are there any other really cool stories or any fascinating things that you wanted to kind of share with us on the stream that we maybe haven't gotten to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been so cool to do this. The time has just flown. And that said, though, I take no offense at all. I am not Shang Tsung, at least not yet. So I can tell you. So he is the man. So I do ask that on my behalf. You got to ask him what was the moment he knew Mortal Kombat was huge, or the weirdest thing about Mortal Kombat that he learned. You got to get some deep cut out of him. That being said, though, man, stuff that I haven't shared. I've gone around the world 2 or 3 times with all the different stuff I've covered. But yeah, I would just say that, yeah, if you're not following me already, twitter.com/NBA Jambook. I've got all kinds of cool stuff on there. If you've got NBA Jam stuff, please email it to me, nbajambook@gmail.com, or tweet it at me, and I'll send it out. I've got more information, tangible information about the release date coming soon. Keeping that as TBD, just to cover my bases, but it will be soon. I've got the prologue out. I'm sorry, yeah, it's the prologue, not the epilogue. The prologue out on Kotaku the night they turned on the NBA Jam machine. I've got, let's see, there's the boss fight books. Of course, you got to check them out. There's tons of great books in the series. Super Mario Brothers 2 is super cool. I especially love the Galaga one, which is not in my possession right now, but there's a really good one about Galaga by an author named Michael Kimball. And yeah, and I just want to thank you guys so much for having me on. And yeah, if you want to go and pre-order the book, it's on Amazon too. Awesome. Otherwise, yeah, just stay tuned. There'll be more to come. And, you know, I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff I still haven't even learned or forgot about NBA Jam that's going to come out. So,
well, I can't wait to read it. I will absolutely read it. Like I said before, I'm a huge fan of I'm an avid reader. I enjoy the Midway games. Yeah. And like Fatal Kate said, I'm also looking forward to the Insert Coin documentary. And this book really seems to go hand in hand with that. For Midway fans, this is just a blast having your book come out along with everything else that's going on. So thank you so much for coming on our show. Fatal Kate, do you have any closing remarks you want to say?
Yeah. I absolutely did. I did. I remember actually going to look for Team Ripset later and being like, did this guy just leave Twitter? Did he just delete his account? Then I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, wait, no, he changed his name. This was right around the time that, you joined MK Online. I think it was around that time. Not that you joined MK Online, but that you're working in the position you are now. But, yeah, I know. I put 2 and 2 together. And also, one plug for something that I'm completely unrelated to, Masters of Doom is an amazing book about the creation of Doom and the early days of id Software that I've used as a model. So if you want good video game writing and get an idea of what my style is going to be like, read Masters of Doom. This book is amazing. This guy's my hero. Yeah.
You've been very generous plugging other people's books tonight, too. I got to give you props.
Yeah, no, this is great stuff. And I mean, video game... I hope that there's someday going to be like a whole shelf, like a video game book shelf, if you go to Barnes & Noble or something like that, where you'll be like, oh, wow, I can see the history of this game, this game, this game, this game. I mean, like, think about all these amazing games out there that nobody's written the definitive book or anything like that about. There's some books out there, definitely, but there's so much more to go. And, I imagine that, like, let's say Fortnite, the Fortnite book someday, if they do it right, will probably be amazing. So
will that be you? Are you going to do the Fortnite book?
Am I going to do the Fortnite book? Probably not. No, I'm like I'm like an old guy in a way. Like I cut off at like 2002, 2003 on video games. I want to get back into video games more and start playing stuff after PlayStation 2. I've got a PS3, but I don't play a ton of stuff. I want a PS4, but I'm always a generation behind. I don't play a ton, but I mean I love video games. I feel like the Fortnite book is going to be somebody else's. But, man, I would love to be an advisor on that and be like, okay, you got to do this, this, and this. So,
what about a Mortal Kombat book? Could that be in your future?
You know what? Honestly, doing a Mortal Kombat book for me would be a dream. I already have a really good idea of what a Mortal Kombat book could be and the stories you could tell. I'm not sure if it's necessarily in the cards that would happen, but I mean, I can't say I haven't given it some thought. I mean, if anything else, like, if this book wasn't NBA Jam, this book is like a little mini Mortal Kombat book with all the Mortal Kombat stories and the connections I've got. So I would love the opportunity to write a Mortal Kombat book. So, yeah, if it was in the cards and the offer was right, the timing was right and whatnot, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it all over again with Mortal Kombat.
Well, on that note, I have to thank you once again for being a great guest. We thought this stream would maybe be like an hour and a half or something like that, and it's been God knows how long. But like you said, the time just flies by when you're having fun. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you again. It's been awesome. Fatal K, thank you, and of course, congratulations to Lone Wolf Productions for winning yet another prize, another trivia night. Great job, and thank you to everybody for watching. Have a good night, and we will be back October 3rd with Kerry Tagawa.
Thank you, guys. There you go. Take care, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching.